February 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Marion County School Board is called to order. Vice Chair Campbell, would you give us our board motto?
Yes, sir. We are the Marion County School District Leadership Team. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first. We will leave a legacy of success.
Thank you. For the courtesy of those listening to the meeting, I'm requesting everyone in the audience to please remove your hats and turn off electronic devices or put them on vibrate. Later in the meeting, up to 30 minutes will be provided for individuals to address the board on matters concerning the operation of the Marion County school system or the school board only. Presentations to the board are limited to 5 minutes and are televised. If you wish to address the board regarding a regular agenda item or matters on which the board customarily takes action, you must first complete a peach form located in the lobby. If you wish to address the board regarding a public hearing or a student discipline matter, please complete a lime green form. These forms must be fully completed and received by the board clerk no later than 5:40 p.m. The procedures applicable for each are on a separate sheet. Board clerk, please call the roll.
Mrs. Allison Campbell, District 1.
Here.
Mr. Don Browning, District 2.
Here.
Mr. Eric Cummings, District 3.
Here.
Mrs. Nancy Thrower, District 4.
Here.
Mrs. Kelly King, District 5.
Here.
Dr. Diane Gullett, Superintendent.
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Powers, School Board Attorney.
Here. Mr. Stephen Ayers, Director of School Choice Magnet Programs and Student Records. Please introduce the individuals that will lead us in the inspiration and pledge.
Good evening, and welcome to 2222 Tuesday. Good evening, Board Chair, Madam Co-Chair, Board members, Dr. Gullett, Attorney Powers, Ms. Martinez-Lopez. Here to present tonight's inspiration and pledge in recognition of National Magnet School Month is Dr. Sarah Tierney, Coordinator of School Choice.
Good evening, Chairman Cummings, Vice Chair Campbell, board members, Dr. Gullett, Mr. Powers, and Ms. Martinez-Lopez. I am proud to share some great things happening in Marion County's magnet programs with you tonight. Every year, the Magnet Schools of America organization recognizes schools of merit in two categories, distinction and excellence, for their adherence to the 5 pillars of magnet programs: diversity, innovative instruction, academic achievement, professional development, and parent and community involvement. This year, MCPS won 7 awards of distinction. I'm going to call their names, and when I call them, I'd like them to stand up. Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary, Madison Street Academy, Reddick Collier Elementary, Dunellen High School, Forest High School, North Marion High School, and Westport High School. These are our schools of distinction. And 2 of our schools received the highest award, the Schools of Excellence: Bellevue High School and Howard Middle School. So if we could just give them a little bit of round of applause. Thank you. Here to speak briefly about one of the activities that make our program so great, the Student Spaceflight Experiments Program, in collaboration with the National Center for Earth-Space Science Education, is former Golden Apple Award winner Lisa Fontaine-Dorsey from Dr. N.H. Jones and the students who contributed to the project.
Good evening. I also want to introduce Dee Reedy from North Marion High School because she was an integral part of what we're about to talk about. My name's Lisa Fontaine-Dorsey, and I am the gifted resource teacher at Dr. N.H. Jones. We worked on an amazing program called the Student Spaceflight Experiment Program, where our students will win a contest and will be sending an experiment to the International Space Station on a SpaceX rocket coming up at the end of June. What I really want to speak about as a teacher is the way this program changed the way I teach science. I have always loved teaching science, pride myself on being a good science teacher. And after this program and seeing how it is so beneficial to collaborate with other people, whether it's someone in our own county, Dee Reedy at North Marion High School, or if we were emailing we emailed with people across the United States and across the world. My girl group over there who took second place in this competition were actually emailing with researchers in Singapore. My boy group here was emailing with people from, oh, I just forgot the name of it, the University of Oxford, and we were Zooming with researchers all across the United States. It was an amazing experience, and it changed the way that I will forever teach science. I will never do it by myself because there is always someone out there that knows more than me that can give us so much more insight into whatever we're learning about. You want to add anything? No. And then I just want to introduce the students that were involved. And one more thing, collaboration was like the key that made this work, because without North Marion collaborating with us at the end, we never would have been able to finish the science involved, because it was such a higher level of science than we're used to at an elementary school. So these are the amazing students that were involved, and they're going to lead us in the pledge tonight. From Dr. N.H. Jones, we have Arya, I'm going to mess it up, I'm so sorry. Arya Savartnam, Anahan Gopalan, Soraya Chetty, Journey Hammond, Colin Sheldon, Savannah Eatman. And from North Marion High School, we have Jacob Redinger and Dalton Gentleman.
Please stand.
Go ahead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair, members of the board. I recommend approval of the agenda for February 22nd, 2022, school board meeting with the materials in the board packet, those materials distributed to board members at the meeting, and the audio recording included as part of the official record of the meeting, with the exception of the following items: D17.1, D17.2, D17.3 that have been placed under discussion, and items C6.1, C8.1, C10.1, C10.2, C10.7, and C12.1 that have been pulled for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. May I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair, seconded by Ms. King. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same sign. Unanimous. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 9th, 2021 administrative briefing and work session?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. King, seconded by Ms. Throer. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? There being none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. I'll now ask the school board's attorney to explain the rules governing persons who wish to address the school board tonight.
Thank you, Reverend Cummings. In compliance with Section 286.0114 of Florida statutes, the school board has adopted uniform procedures for public speakers who wish to speak at tonight's meeting, either regarding one of tonight's agenda items or a matter relating to the operations of the school district. These procedures will ensure the public has a reasonable opportunity to be heard on school board and school district matters. A written summary of these procedures is available from the table in the lobby. Public speaker forms are also located on the same table. The completed forms were due to the school board's clerk no later than 5:40 p.m. Tonight's speakers will be called prior to the business portion of the school board's meeting in the order of receipt by the school board clerk. Before you begin speaking, please state your full name and address for the record and spell your last name. Each speaker will have 5 minutes of time. However, if there are more than 5 persons who wish to speak, the board may seek consensus to limit each speaker's time to 3 minutes. When the speaker has 1 minute remaining, the speaker will receive a visual notice to complete his or her comments. Speakers may not yield their time to other people. Speakers and meeting attendees are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Therefore, verbal attacks and profanity are strictly prohibited. Pursuant to the procedures for public comments, item 6, speakers are not to identify specific individuals other than themselves or their child unless a statement is provided 24 hours in advance. The board is here to listen to your comments only. You may be directed to an administrator or staff member following the conclusion of your comments for further assistance to address your concerns. If there are matters dealing with student discipline, including expulsions, they will be scheduled at the conclusion of the televised portion of this meeting. Parents may address the board regarding a discipline matter at that time. To ensure student privacy, only a parent or guardian may use a student's first or last name. Identifying references to or identification of other students and/or their families are also strictly prohibited. A public speaker's speech does not reflect the endorsement, sponsorship, position, or expression of the school district. Thank you for your attention to the board's requirements. Chair, that concludes my explanatory remarks.
Ms. Martinez-Lopez, how many do we have tonight?
Sir, we have 8 speakers.
Okay. Board, due to the number of individuals requesting to speak, I'm requesting consensus to limit the time for public comment to 3 minutes.
Is it about the same topic, or are they different? Are there different topics?
We have various topics.
There's various topics.
And what's the question? I couldn't hear it.
To limit the amount of time
Because,
of the number of speakers.
and how many do we have?
8.
8.
8 times 5, 40 minutes, so,
It's up to you guys. I'm cool
Yeah.
either way.
I'd like to go for it, because it may not take all their time.
Anybody else? in agreement?
They're on various topics. I think we should.
Okay, all right. Let's have the first one.
Ms. Helene Hoteling?
My name is Helen Hotaling, Hotaling. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I've worked for Marion County over 30 years. I've been a classroom teacher in 3 different schools. I have 3 adult children who are products of Marion County and are now very successful in their career. I was honored as Marion County Teacher of the Year in 2018. But tonight, I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the experienced teachers of Marion County. My fellow teachers and I are in a financial quandary, and we're asking you, the school board, to help us. The teachers who have worked for Marion County for more than 10 years have not had a substantial raise, while the teachers at the beginning of their career have had enormous raises. We all understand that Marion County needs to attract more teachers. Therefore, the large raises has been authorized for beginning teachers. However, these novice teachers need the expertise of the experienced teachers to become more effective teachers. It's unsettling to a veteran teacher to help a new teacher with lesson plans, organization, classroom management, and so much more, realizing that the inexperienced teacher is making virtually the same salary as the experienced teacher. Imagine, if you will, that you're living in a family with many children who are all getting a weekly allowance for doing their chores. Suddenly, the youngest children are getting a $2 a week raise. The older siblings have always helped the younger because they need assistance to successfully complete their allowance. But they're told that the money spent on the younger children is the reason they cannot get an increase. Now, I ask you, how would that make you feel? What would your reaction be? Marion County is losing many experienced teachers as they become discouraged by the lack of a substantial raise year after year. Marion County's teachers are working for less money now than they were working for 5 years ago when you consider inflation. Here we are at the end of February, and the teachers still do not have a contract for this school year, which is almost 3/4 completed. Please send the experienced teachers a message of gratitude for all we have done for Marion County's children by ensuring that the next contract negotiation is fruitful and shows that the school board values their veteran teachers. You, the school board members, have the power to make this happen. Your career teachers will demonstrate their appreciation and give you a big return on your investment. After all, the experienced teachers are the backbone of this school system. Thank you for your attention in this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Hoteling.
Mr. Robert Schmidt.
Good evening, board members. Chairman, tonight I'm going to discuss with you, this is the business section of the meeting, so you'd expect nothing less of me than to present you business items, okay? After reviewing this week's agenda, I would like to say we are moving towards moving the needle of open discussion in the right direction, selecting which items to discuss with the public and which ones to put on the consent agenda is a careful balancing act that the superintendent has. I applaud the progress we are making, pulling items out of the consent and placing them in discussion. Tonight, however, I'm going to drop anchor on agenda items 17.1 and early opening academy for 22-23 school year, and agenda item 17.2, the 1 mil ad valorem tax. Having been there for the discussions on the 1 mil ad valorem tax, I can confidently say those issues were not debated. Hard questions were not asked by the board to those presenting in favor of the tax. Neither were there opposing ideas presented that would have challenged the board into discussions. There was more debate on how to get the item to the voter than there was on the continued need for the tax. Questions such as, what will the board do if the voters reject this, were never discussed. In my opinion, omission of these questions and subsequent discussion suggests that the 1 mil tax is not critical for continuing these programs that you've determined that are critical. You have two attachments for the proposed resolution. One is for a half mil and one is for 1 mil. Now, I know the resolution being sent to the Board of County Commissioners of Marion County is for 1 mil. So I'm curious as to why the half mil is on the agenda as an attachment. Maybe you can clarify that at some point when you get to that agenda item. Significantly, an inquisitive voter and taxpayer will look at this and ask themselves why safe schools are being exposed to funding risk every 4 years, and why standing up a new pre-K program from the general revenues starting next year is a higher priority than safe schools. This seems upside down to me. Doesn't make a lot of sense. These programs you consider critical for the student's success should be funded using a predictable revenue stream that should come before you expand your charter into new programs. Now, item 17.1, opening early academy pre-K for 22-23 school year. There are very few details what you will be voting on tonight. I didn't see any attachments in there explaining any of that. There are no dollars, but there are plans. There are dollars, but no plans for those dollars. What are you going to do with these funds? What is the plan over the next 3 years? Again, where was the discussion about what you were going to vote on tonight? I have no idea. From my point of view, tonight you're voting on to expand your mission statement to include pre-K. Again, I hope you can take and maybe clarify that question at some point in your deliberations. When you get to these agenda items, these are things that we would like to discuss, and that's why it's good to sit there and get these questions out to you so that when you take and get a chance to take and listen and have these deliberations yourself, you've got these questions as the backdrop for your discussions. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Lopez.
Miss Melanie Slaughter.
Melanie Slaughter, SLAUGHTER, 4525 Southeast 12th Avenue, Ocala, Florida, 34480. I'm before the board on several issues that parents have asked me to discuss. The first is the 1 mil referendum. The parents that I've talked to think it's an essential thing for the operation of the Marion County Public Schools. Specifically, they would like to encourage the board, if the mill is passed, to consider summer school. Summer school, it was used with federal dollars last year, was a tremendous success, especially for my high school that my child attends, Vanguard High School. The football players that had an opportunity to enroll in summer school, no academic problems the entire year because they had summer school. 2 of the students that signed to play football in college got to sign in December because they were academically qualified. The last 2 years I was at Vanguard, 0 were. Nobody could start school early. We had 1 student already enrolled in college in January. And that was because we had the summer school, that helped tremendously. We had very few, if any, students not be eligible to start playing football when they got from Howard to Vanguard because they could recover credits in summer school. And then we also had students that were able to do algebra because they had algebra preparedness through Mr. Rembert, which I'm sorry he left, we give him a shout out, Mr. Rembert, from Howard Middle School, who had the best algebra teacher and geometry teacher working in the Marion County Public Schools. I'll give a shout out to Ms. Cooper Davis, who tutored those kids over the summer so they were prepared to start algebra in 9th grade. And they were prepared to do geometry in 10th or 11th grade or whenever they took it. And they passed those classes and were qualified to go to school. The next thing I was asked to talk about is discipline. The discipline is disproportionately discriminatory against boys, as my 17-year-old son tells me. The schools are not made for them. They are impulsive and do not make good decisions, really between 16 and 25. The criminal justice system, which I work on a daily basis, has a disproportionate violent crime and impulsive things done by men between 16 and 25. Once they hit 25, they stop doing those types of things. It makes no sense to me that if I commit a crime in Marion County, like I have marijuana, I'm going to get community service and get diverted into a program in the juvenile justice system. I'm expelled from high school. I lose an entire year. If I get into a fight with somebody in school, if I'm 2 boys fighting, and I happen to bump into a boy walking by me and I shove the boy that bumped into me, all of a sudden it's not just a fight between 2 boys, 10 days in suspension, it's expulsion, because you know what that is? A riot. And it makes absolutely 0 sense that we are not supporting our young men who are going to do stupid and impulsive things, like pulling somebody's pants down because they want to pant somebody in school, and all of a sudden they're risking being expelled, which happens. And boys make dumb, stupid decisions. And as a mother of 3 boys, I can tell you there's an enormous difference between the things my sons do and the thing my daughter does. And she measured her shorts to make sure that they were compliant with the dress code. She made sure that her shorts were a certain number of inches between her knee and the end of her shorts. My kids don't even know that there's a dress code. My boys don't. And you can't treat them the same way. There's got to be some type of looking at individual cases and not just kicking these kids to the curb because they make a dumb, impulsive decision. One of my son's really good friends got kicked out of IB at Vanguard because he did something stupid in the parking lot. And now he's gone from that school. And he's a bright, intelligent kid who was in IB, and now he's not in there anymore. And I just am asking you to look at that, especially since you're going through that type of thing. And the last thing is the parental involvement that Vice Chair brought up. The parents are telling me that they don't feel like they're invited to school after elementary school. They're not invited to participate in the school. They're not invited to participate in what their children are doing at school. When my kids graduated from elementary school, I felt like I graduated because I knew I wasn't going to be down there 20 times a year. But it made me involved. I knew every teacher they had, what their homework was every week. I knew absolutely everything they were doing. As soon as they started middle school, I had no idea. The only time I knew that something wasn't done is if I looked in the portal and saw that they didn't have it completed, or they had a zero, they had a missing assignment. But I don't have any communication from teachers, and none of the parents think they do either. So if you want involvement, involve them in the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Slaughter.
Ms. Patricia Driscoll.
Good evening. Patricia Driscoll, 19052 Southeast 162nd Street, Weirsdale, Florida 32195. I'm here tonight to serve you each with a letter of intent to file a claim against your school insurance and liability policy held by Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc., in lieu of your individual liability bonds that are required by state law for every person who is elected or appointed to a government or public office. You swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida and the Constitution of the United States of America. You have violated both of your oaths and at least 17 state, U.S., and international laws. They are detailed with explanations in the papers that your board attorney has that I have served you in public and on record. When you accepted $57 million in ESSER funds last year, you agreed to impose unconstitutional COVID mandates and restrictions and to push SEL, aka CRT, critical race theory, into students and teacher curriculum. There is no room in public schools for this material. We live in America, ladies and gentlemen, and we are free to live our lives without restrictions, abuse, and the unlawful mandates from elected government officials. Mandates are not enforceable laws. As elected public servants, you have no jurisdiction or authority to create or enforce mandates. I will file a claim against your liability insurance policy if the following demands are not met in the next 72 hours. You must, and I say you must, stop and remove all COVID, coercion, marketing, and propaganda in all forms to students, teachers, staff, administrators, and the parents of the Marion County School District, including charter schools. You must stop and remove all SEL, CRT instruction, that's social emotional learning if you don't know the new code name, from the Marion County Schools curriculum in all forms, including charter schools. You must remove all transgender LGBTQ plus materials from all school facilities, including charter schools, and the curriculum that promote pedophilia, underage sex, abortion, and any unacceptable sexual influence on our children. You must renegotiate your ESSER contract. You must provide an accounting of all ESSER funds spending, including all repurposing of these funds. All except Don Browning must step down from your positions because you broke the law. You broke 17 of them. We wouldn't let a child stay in school if they broke the law. All except, and finally, you must make a public apology. You go ahead and smile at me. You enjoyed this. To all the individuals whose rights you violated as targeted in your board resolution 2108. If there are any inaccuracies in the above information I've provided, this is your notice to provide me with any and all corrections. You have 72 hours to comply, or a claim will be filed against your Arthur Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. for the full amount of coverage. You have been served. I would suggest that you learn about the document that you swore an oath to uphold and defend. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez-Lopez.
Rose Marie Williams.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. My name is Rose Williams. I've been reviewing the agenda and found myself confused with the nature of the consent agenda items. I understand the need for routine items being on a consent agenda, especially after working in education myself for 35 years. Items such as administrative changes to job descriptions or internal administrative issues or procuring supplies for administrative purposes that do not impact the overall financial disposition of the school district are reasonable to place on the consent agenda. These items would be routine, small, planned, and budgeted. That said, there is an expectations that items, when exceeding some threshold, should be discussed with the public, even though they might be considered routine. After closer review of the agenda items, I was surprised to find in the consent agenda $1.9 million wrapped up under item 10, and another $3.7 million wrapped up under item 11. I would never consider items that are hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars to be routine. It seems reasonable to allocate a few minutes to discuss these with the public. I also reviewed the attached financial presentation that was part of the agenda, item 9, the budget resolution number 5, January 2022 budget amendments. After several passes reviewing the attachment, I was left with a lack of understanding what I was supposed to be looking at. It was almost impossible to understand or follow. What is being said, and why is it important? In the future, a stronger discussion in the action, rationale, and results section would facilitate better public understanding of agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a form here, but I do not have a name. The legal address is 881 Southeast 168th Telfer Street.
My name is Judy Lavender, Lavendar. I live at 8811 Southeast 168th Telfer, Lady Lake, Florida. I'm here tonight to serve each of you with a letter of intent to file a claim against your school insurance and liability policy held by Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc., in lieu of your individual liability bonds that are required by state law for every person who is elected or appointed to government or public office. You swore an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida and the Constitution of the United States. You have violated both of your sworn oaths and 17 state, U.S., and international laws. They are detailed with explanations in the papers I have here to serve you in public and on record. When you accepted $50 million in ESSR funds last year, you agreed to impose unconstitutional COVID mandates and restrictions to push SEL, aka CRT, critical race theory, into the student and teacher curriculum. This material has no place in the public schools. We live in America and are free to live our lives without restrictions, abuse, and unlawful mandates from elected government officials. Mandates are not enforceable laws. As elected public servants, you have no jurisdiction or authority to create or enforce mandates. I will file a claim against your surety liability insurance policy if the following demands are not met in the next 72 hours. You must stop and remove all COVID coercion and propaganda in all forms to students, teachers, staff, administrators, and parents of the Marion County School District. You must stop and remove all SEL-CRT instruction from the Marion County Schools curriculum in all forms. You must stop and remove all transgender LGBTQ plus materials from all school facilities in the school curriculum that promote pedophilia, underage sex, abortion, and any unacceptable sexual influence on our children. Renegotiate all terms of the ASSR contract. Provide an accounting of all ASSR funds spending, including repurposing of these funds. You must provide an accounting of all ESSR funds spending, including, sorry, I'm repeating it. You must, all except Don Browning, must step down from your position because you broke the law. You broke more than 17 laws. And finally, you must make a public apology to all the individual whose rights you violated as targeted in your board resolution 21-08. If there are any inaccuracies in the above information I have provided, this is your notice to provide me with any and all corrections. You have 72 hours to comply, or a claim will be filed against Arthur Gallagher Risk Management Services, Inc. for the following, for the full amount of the coverage. You have been served.
Mr. Gary White.
Stop. Ma'am, you cannot come up here.
No, your service is improper, your notice
Is
is
Mr. McFadden here, please?
You may set those things down there, that's fine. Your service is improper under 768.
Mr.
Your notice
McFadden,
is
could you please
improper.
escort these two ladies out, please? Thank you, Mr. McFadden.
Recess, should be recess.
We're going to recess for 5 minutes. Meeting is reconvened at 6:36. I'm going to restart this meeting with Attorney Powers bringing us up to speed about board meetings, please.
Yes, sir. At the beginning of each board meeting, I read some elements asking for proper decorum and giving the rules of the road, so to speak, for how we go about that. That's pursuant to Board Policy 2.22, Section 9, which indicates that the public shall be routinely informed that it is unlawful to knowingly disrupt or interfere with a school board meeting, and any such action may result in a criminal misdemeanor offense in the second degree. This prescription includes individuals who advise, counsel, or instruct students or MCPS employees on methods or techniques for disrupting a school board meeting. Likewise, that is based on Florida Statute 877.13, Educational Institutions or School Boards Penalty for Disruption. It's unlawful for any person knowingly to disrupt or interfere with the lawful administration or functions of any educational institution, school board, or activity on school board property in this state. There are a number of references throughout Florida statute that give school boards the authority to maintain order within its meetings. Within our school board policy, anyone can look up, those are cited. That ranges from sections 1001.41 and 1001.42, which grant broad authority to the school board to institute policies. Chapter 112, 120.525, 120.53, 877.13, 1001.32, 1001.37. There are additional ones noted as well. Would like to ask that as we re-begin our meeting, that we maintain adult decorum throughout. We, as the school board, will give everyone the opportunity to speak and participate fully in these proceedings. And that's what we've done over the course of our history, and we intend to continue that. But we can continue to do so in a respectful manner. That's what we ask at the beginning of each meeting, and that's what I'll ask of all participants now. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Powers. We will continue with the public comment section of this meeting. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, I think you had called Mr. Gary White.
Yes, sir.
He was the last speaker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. White,
Thank you, sir.
you will be afforded the full
My
time.
name is Gary White.
You will be afforded the full time to give your public comment.
That's fine. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I represent Tea Party, which is a great organization who helped support and vet the school board members that we have now. And we have supported you and cared about you, and in essence, just want to help you. Your job is magnanimous. That's a word I made up one time. And we want to help because as a president of an organization, I know how many things come across your desk, how many things you have to attend to. Your work is almost, well, it's endless. It's endless. You could, it's like a farmer. There's always something on the farm to fix, and you're there. Sometimes I think you might not have realized exactly how much there was in that position that you now hold. There's $750 million. There's 43,000 students. My word for today is examination, because what we're calling for is an examination. We don't want to riot, cause a problem. My Tea Party is God, Constitution, and country. And I'm here representing them, and I will not represent them badly. We want to help you. We believe that 10% at most may be able to be cut from the budget if we examine each individual thing as well as we can. Nobody's done it before you. You're a victim of what's happened before you. The river has run down, and you're where everybody has put you. Your staffs, your programs, you have the best thoughts and the best ideas for our school. It is just so difficult to make changes in what the water flowed to you. everything that's happened before you has put you in this position. My call is to parents. I went to a ball game again the other night at Denellen Middle School. It looks like what I would call a ghetto. The lights are dim, the scoreboards don't work, it needs paint, and it's clean. And I'm standing there watching this, thinking, I'm clear out here in Denellen, watching a bunch of parents who I've never seen at a school board meeting. They're supporting their kids. I don't even think they know there is a school board. They're clear out in Denellen, and we're clear over here in Ocala, and I don't think they understand. So I'm asking parents through the transmission of television tonight to get involved with this school board and help them do the job they want to do. Know what's going on here. Come to these meetings. The only time you'll ever get here is when somebody has done Common Core or some other bad thing against your kids, and we make the moms mad. We need you to watch these programs, watch what's going on this night, and get involved. Parents, I'm telling you, you need to get involved. We just want to help, and we can make some great changes through all the people that we're involved with, such as Tea Party, and we can make some great changes and help these people do the job that I know. I've listened to every one of you. You want to help kids learn more, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and get back to it. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Martinez, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Stephen Sweat.
Hi, my name is Steve Sweat, S-W-E-T-T. And first thing I want to do is shout out to the sound guy. It's a lot better back there, and that's good. One thing before I get into the meat of my subject, this consent item, I've just been to about 3 meetings, and I watched a few, and I think it's good because I'm going to talk about Consent Agenda 17.1, the Learning Academy. Well, I'm just glad it wasn't passed as a consent issue because I went back to March 10th of 2021 and looked at your school board meeting, and I gleaned a lot from it. So at that meeting, it was introduced to you, and things were said. Okay, did we ever get any community input? Said you were going to in March. I don't know. Did we ever start a pre-K at MTI here? I don't think so, but that was a suggestion. What is the cost for private daycare in Marion County? I don't know, but I know it's going to be $20,000 a year. If you take the $1.4 million and put 63 students, it's $20,000 a year at the. What is the criteria for the family selection of who's going to go to this school? Is it means tested? Is it a lottery? Is it people in the area? I don't know. Maybe that's what that. These are questions, okay? Working family, single parents, economic needs. What is the basis? If you don't work, can your kid go? Okay, and then we jump forward to October 7 in August. I'll just combine them. Okay, I see, and I call this is just my opinion, mission creep. My goodness gracious, we want to turn into family counseling, language classes, GED, job training skills. That's, that's a lot. We just need to educate the kids, but again, maybe there's more to it that I know with the community involvement. So, maybe now it's not only the whole child, but the whole family, one community, big job. But if we can do it, good for us. Private donors, did we find them? Are they there? Did they come through? Do companies help if their employees use this facility? I know a lot of big employers here, they don't pay well. Well, they ought to chip in. And did we ever straighten out the transportation? How are these kids going to get to school? They're under 5. You need an aide on the bus. How did we ever resolve the lunch? And these are questions that were brought up March, August, and October. So all I'm saying is on the consent thing, this is the fruit of it because I don't know if this would have been passed under the old consent thing and we wouldn't have known. And I'm sure you guys have found all the answers to these because like the gentleman said, you got a hard job. You got a hard job. It's not easy. You know, you're in the fire pit. So, okay, 3 years. Okay. So this readiness of school, will it cover all the cost? Is it free at 3K? Is it free? I mean, if it is free, I know my son, and I hate anecdotal stuff, but down in Broward County where my son, we have a 3-year-old grandson, it's $9,000 a year to go to a pre-K that's a good one. I'm going to say a good one, you know. And so, you know, it's a top job. So we're talking 63 kids still for the first year. Is it worth the bang for the buck? And exactly what are we trying to do? And then the other thing that's just a hanging thing, something about when these kids go down to the next school, then they get measured on how effective this school is. Well, I get it, but I'm going to cut this short, and well, I'm going to cut it short because I have to. So here's my question. Have we given up on the nuclear family? Have we given up entirely on parents teaching their kids? I mean, is that where we're headed? If so, let's just say it so everybody will know. You know, because I see most parents still trying to plug away and teach their kids the right things. And I know the foundational skills are important. But we've had Head Start since I've been a young man, and that was not a recent time. Head Start is still there, so what are we doing? So anyway, these are just questions that I gleaned by listening and paying attention to you. So, you know, and thank you for what you do, and thank all the workers. And I think God bless teachers. I'm going to say that. You know, I'm a product of public education, and I believe in it, and I believe in what we do. And no other America, you know, you can go back to the very founding. So God bless America, and God bless public education, but also education. We need to save our children and save our schools. So thank you, and keep up the good work, and we're all with you. Like Mr. White here said, we're all with you. There ain't an enemy in this place. We're all with you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Joseph Prohaska.
Good evening. My name is Joe Prohaska, Prohaska. I come here tonight to speak in favor of public education, excellent public education, but to speak against the 1 mil tax. The first thing, as I've come to learn about the tax and its history, is that it was intended to be a temporary tax to meet temporary conditions. This was, 12 years ago or more? And then it was renewed for another 4 years, and then I believe another 4 years, and now we're renewing it. So is the intention that it's going to be a permanent tax? Then let's make it a permanent tax. There's been plenty of time to work it into the budget, it seems to me. Now I'm going to speak out of the other side of my mouth and say that having been a teacher at a charter public middle school in California for 11 years, I know well that teachers everywhere are underpaid. We cannot pay them enough. That's not just patronizing talk. This is the truth. It's a real problem. So for that reason, I think we need to pay very close attention to all our expenses. That's the whole point, to carve out more money so that we can pay our teachers more. That's one of the big benefits of this greater scrutiny that I believe you guys are beginning to deliver on. I do want to say that having more money's needed for public education. That's clear, that's obvious. But having more money doesn't necessarily lead to better educational results. I know this from personal experience because the charter schools in California and many states receive significantly less money per head, per student, than the normal public schools. So my school had to do additional fundraising in order to make up the difference. Our facilities were very humble, and yet we were the highest performing middle school in our district in East San Jose. I'm very proud of that. We worked very hard. We focused relentlessly on what we were trying to do and how we were doing it. The teachers worked very long hours and tried to always improve what we were doing and look at the results that we were getting. I know this school system does that too, and we need to do more of it. The last thing I guess I want to comment on is the ICROC, which I think has a good idea there. But to be perfectly blunt, the way I look at it is the plan for these significant funds from the tax are, we're going to hire these people. And then the Independent Review Commission says they hired those people. But what we really want to know is what results were obtained with the money. Was it well spent money? Could we spend it better elsewhere? Not that we said we were going to hire all these people and we did. Yay. The last thing I want to just ask for, if possible, is to catch up on the minutes for the meetings. I think we're about 2 months behind, and it'd be great if we could catch up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, are there any more?
That's it, sir.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve consent agenda items C6.1 through C15.2 with the exceptions of item D17.1, D17.2, D17.3 that have been placed under discussion, and items C6.1, C8.1, C10.1, C10.2, C10.7, and C12.1 that have been pulled for discussion. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. King. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed have the same sign.
No.
May I have a motion to approve the opening of the Early Learning Academy for the 2022-2023 school year?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. King. This one was pulled for discussion. Superintendent?
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. We have here Dr. Hembrook and Mr. Ayers who have been leading this work. If you have any questions or if you'd like to hear any additional information other than what we've had at previous work sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, we all have seen this is on our agenda, and it's about the start of this Early Learning Academy that is at the site of Evergreen Elementary School. This is the funds that were submitted in this agenda item is to start this academy starting August for the 2022-2023 school year. It is outlined in on the agenda exactly what those items are for, what those funds are for. I'm going to go through it real quick because I want to make sure that the public understand that it is there. This request is to approve the development, staffing, and enrollment of an early learning academy, which is to be named later, located at 4000 West Anthony Road, Ocala, Florida 34475, which we know that to be Evergreen Elementary, the prior former school. The new school will open at the start of the 2022-2023 school year. The school will open with pre-K and kindergarten classes and expand one grade each year until the third year, when it will be completed as a pre-K through second grade school. The estimated total cost for the first year is $1,424,391. This includes an estimated $39,000 for remodeling, an estimated $22,507 for curriculum, an estimated $88,339 to open and operate the Marion after-school program, and an estimated $274,545 for staffing and operations. The estimated total cost for the second year is $1,676,178. This includes an estimated $13,552 for curriculum, an estimated $77,367 to operate the Marion after-school program, an estimated $1.6 and some change for staffing and operations. The estimated total cost for the third year is $1.9 million. This includes an estimated $14,086 for curriculum, an estimated $77,367 to operate the Marion after-school program, an estimated $1.825964 for staffing and operations. So if there's any further discussion, this will be the time to do it. Or if you have any questions for Dr. Hembrook or Mr. Ayers. Mr. Browning.
Yes. I like this experiment in early education. It's controlled, it's very localized, the building already exists, and I am troubled with us going too far down to 2-year-olds and that type of thing, and I've expressed that in the past. But this one I like the controlled nature of it, and if we can pull the dollars together without hurting our employees, I can support this.
Any other comments? Ms. Sorrell?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with Board Member Browning on this one. Our employees are already being hurt by having students in their classrooms that are 2, 3, 4, 10 years behind. Anything we can do to address that learning gap early makes it easier. If a student, and this is all research-based, if a student is on grade level and reading on grade level by 3rd grade, then they're likely going to be in good shape for the rest of their high school career. And I don't know if there's anyone that thinks that our COVID slide is going to be over by 2024. That robust summer school program that we did this past summer was fantastic, very well attended. It helped, but our kids need a lot more help. It's voluntary, right? So if parents want to send their kids, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. You know, we have the support of our legislature. I believe that there is an intention of basically renaming K-12 education at some point to pre-K 22, because those of us that have worked with special needs populations know that our special needs kids with special needs, can stay in our schools until their 22nd birthday. So we might as well call it what it is. The funding is on tap to be increased this session. I think it was Senator Perry that brought that one forward. So the recognition is there, and I know as one person that I can't solve all of society's ills, but I feel like it's really important to make sure that we're offering programs to give each and every child their best start. You know, what the parents choose to do with that is entirely up to them. That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. King?
I also agree with what Ms. Thrower said and Mr. Browning. Early education is extremely important. We know how important the vocabulary gap is for our students. That early on, there could be 1 million, I believe it's even more than that, millions of words, there's a gap that can be filled in just by this early education. Studies have also shown that there's less incidence of retention when students have early education. And as Ms. Thrower was stating earlier, that students that are in the 3rd grade, if they're proficient, their success in the future, it's been proven that they're going to do well. And it's something I didn't even know, I think, until a few weeks ago, that students that are retained in 3rd grade, by the 3rd grade, they follow those students because unfortunately there's a chance, a higher incidence and a chance of them going to prison or to jail. So that's another reason why it's important to catch these students when they're young. Also, graduation rates are higher when students have been exposed to a good early education plan. And this is just a few of my reasons for supporting this. We could just go on and on. And nothing is free, nothing. When we hear free, I'm here to tell you nothing is ever free. But the cost of not giving students the best education that they deserve, and if we have the opportunity to catch them at the beginning, I wholeheartedly support that.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I concur. My fellow board members here have said it very eloquently. I believe that some of the questions that we may have had and that some in the public comment statements requested, many of those questions are awaiting this approval, frankly. We as a board will give the approval to move forward, and then it's up to the operations side of the house to ensure that it is operating the way that it is intended to. Additionally, the donations and things like that that potentially may come in, and that I think that's why it's to be named later, because there's some things that we're not certain of yet. And I think some of those things are kind of potentially on hold until this approval occurs, if and when this approval occurs. So I concur with everything that my fellow board members have said from the standpoint of needing to catch our kids early and understanding from the parental perspective how vitally important it is that those students do get the best possible support that they can before heading into kindergarten. I too, as Mr. Browning said, appreciate this model. This isn't us starting a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old program. This is us starting a pre-K program and kindergarten in the first year. And so eventually becoming a pre-K to 2nd grade. And that's a model that this county doesn't have yet, but is very successful all across this state and all across this country. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how those youngest learners can learn from those 1st and 2nd graders in the next couple of years, and how they can mirror that behavior and the positive reinforcements that they can see. I personally have witnessed in early programs how the competition of one doing something before somebody else does. And it's amazing to see little 4-year-olds and how they want to live up to the expectation of the next person beside them, and how, oh, well, that person's reading that, well, I'm going to figure out how to do that too. We all have competition in our adult lives. Just imagine what it's like for little learners, and they're breeding off of that, and they're learning very effectively in those kinds of settings. So I'm excited about this opportunity that this school board is potentially approving this evening, and I concur with my fellow board members that this is the right direction for us to go.
I want to say this. I agree almost with everything that I've heard from my fellow board members. I agree that we do need early learning. I agree that early learning is a necessity in this day and age. What I don't agree with is I don't consider this an experiment. I don't consider our kids as guinea pigs, and I don't consider this is something that we're trying to see if it's going to work. The data, and we are data-driven, the data nationwide shows that early learning works for kids. If it did not work, our state legislators would not be putting money in early education. It is needed. We have seen where we did not get it. I want to, again, I'll say this to you guys publicly, and you guys just kind of mentioned it about if we don't pay it before 3rd grade, we're going to pay it when they're in their 20s and their teens. I invited you to, let's tour the state prison so we can see, we hear about it all the time, this school to prison pipeline. It starts in 3rd grade. And if we don't see the end effect of it, you're going to pay, as Ms. King just said, it's not free. We'll either pay for it up front or we'll pay for it at the end. I come from the penal system, so I understand why this is important, to invest in our kids now. I'd rather invest in a 3-year-old or 2-year-old rather than paying to house someone and keep them out of society. So I fully support this, and again, I don't call it an experiment. Our kids will never be guinea pigs, and so I'm ready for a vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed have the same sign. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the resolution number 2201, 1 mil ad valorem tax?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Thrower.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. King. Any discussion?
Put forward,
I'm
Reverend
sorry.
Cummings.
Go ahead, Attorney.
This resolution is language that is identical to the language that was previously used, as we had discussed at prior meetings.
Attorney Powers.
Yes, sir.
Turn your mic to you,
I'm
please.
sorry, is it not picked? There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
This resolution has language that is identical to the previous resolution regarding the use, the amounts, everything else. Originally, the document that I typed to upload this had a title that indicated a $1/2 mil resolution and some numbers. I caught that after I had sent it to the agenda, posted the same document with the corrected title file name. So that was the difference between it saying 1/2 mil, just the title of the document. The documents that were there and were put from the very beginning was the same document all along. The other one just, I didn't remove it because it was already been posted. So this,
So the $500,000 one was incorrect.
That's incorrect. Yes,
Correct. Okay.
yes, you are correct that the
Thank
$500,000, the one that was just in the file name had, as part of the file name, said 1/2 mil, whereas it should have said 1 mil. And so I uploaded the corrected titled document, though both documents are identical. I just corrected the title in the file name.
Thank you, sir.
So the only other remaining item I had to discuss regarding this was that Florida statute since 2018 has required that we provide this also in Spanish translation. It has to be identical Spanish translation, and it has to be certified to go on the ballot. And we have a translation service, which we're working with now, to have the Spanish translation crafted and submitted for the review of the supervisor of elections.
Thank you.
And that will be forthcoming.
Thank you. So this motion to approve the resolution is, and I'm just saying this for clarity, is for it to be, we are consenting that it should be sent to the county commission.
That's correct. From here, if it approved by the board, it would, with this language, it would be sent to the county commission. The county commission would put it on one of their agendas, and upon approval by the county commission, then it would go to the supervisor of elections combined with the Spanish translation and be placed on the ballot.
And then the voters would ultimately decide.
Yes, sir.
On this. Mr. Browning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I've considered this at great depth, and I am not in favor of extending this tax. I am in favor of the sunset provision of the current tax that was approved by the voters. We said it would sunset, and from my thinking, it needs to sunset. I haven't seen anything compelling that would tell me that we, in the light of revenues, that would tell me that we should reinstate this tax and make it essentially a permanent tax. We promised to sunset. I wasn't on the board at the time, but I am on the board now, and I don't think we were kidding. I think it should sunset. The dollar reasons is, during our workshop, I had asked for what kind of increased funding we've received with a flat student enrollment level. And the answer off the cuff was 180 million, but it was supposed to have been extended a little further than that in terms of accuracy, so I'm assuming that that's pretty accurate. In addition to that, we received 124 million, which was this, and give or take a few million on that, which was associated with the COVID, and it covers the same period of time. And I think that has to be, it has to be considered, at least from the revenue point of view. Our governor, our legislature have come out very, very strongly, and I support their position that we do better with lower taxes, and I think we've shown that in in the state of Florida. The idea of taxing pulls money out of M2. It's just pretty fundamental that the states that are dealing with income tax, sales tax, county tax, city tax, like I used to be in Baltimore, that's the kind of profile. It's a disaster, ultimately, and it just creates poverty. I'm not an economist, but that's my take on it. I believe that it's very regressive. It disproportionately hurts renters. And I just want to make my case on that. I'm not trying to segregate out anybody, but renters really are disproportionately hurt by ad valorem taxes. And here's the way it goes. When you're an investor and you have a string of rentals and you get an additional tax, it's actually just something it's a cost that's passed along. And I'm making this up, but let's say someone is, say, at $600 a month in a very, very modest rental situation, like maybe one of our bus drivers or paraprofessionals or starting teachers or even our regular teachers. That maybe if they have a rental, suddenly that rent could go up, say, from $600 to $675. Not exactly in proportion, because you typically do not get exact proportion when you move up. It's a combination of things. So this really opens the door on a real estate point of view when an ad valorem tax gets pretty much permanently attached to a property as a lien. It's a legal obligation of owning the property. So for those reasons, I'm not in favor of going beyond the sunset, at least one sunset. If we could sunset and just see how we do. I think we've bought all the mandolins and violins and banjos or whatever it was we were buying at the time. And that's a bit facetious, but I love the arts. I'm a musician, I'm an artist. I've sat on the Arts Council. I love the arts, but I like prosperity better, and I think we'll have prosperity if we do not jump on this tax bandwagon and institute a new tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Board, any other comments? Ready to call for question?
I have a couple things. Thank you, Chair. The half mil was, I think it ended up on there because it was something that I brought forward to discuss. In other words, well, if 1 mil sounds like a lot, what can we do with a half mil? So we had that conversation and the comparison. I'm not in favor of so many of the taxes that we're required to pay. You know, there's taxes on RVs, there's taxes, you know, every government likes to say that they've cut taxes, but I've been in Florida long enough to remember when they said they cut taxes, but they raised fees. And anyone that likes to hunt knows exactly what I'm talking about, or likes to fish. So, you know, we can bandy this about all day and all night, but what it really comes down to, I think, for me, is that I would rather continue to partner with our legislature on reducing taxes, reducing the burden on citizens when it comes to real estate, of which I own. Not every landlord jacks up their rates every time there's an increase. Every situation is different. You have a really good renter, they pay their rent on time, they've been with you 5 or 6 years. You know, I'm not gonna $50 and $100 them to death, but that's just me. And I guess that's my point, is that we all, every single one of us sitting here, and probably every single one of you sitting out there in this audience, has a reason, maybe multiple reasons, why you're for or against this. And isn't that the American way? I'm leaning more towards letting the voters decide. I have my own feelings about it. What I will say is that our ICROC committee, our Citizens Referendum Oversight Committee, has done an incredible job being good stewards and overseers of how that money's been spent. I can only think of one position that was outside of the funding referendum's purview, and that was brought forward. I think it was a clerk position, and that was taken care of. So we're talking almost 8 years of a track record. I would love to think that other monies are being watched over with that kind of a keen eye. I think about the 7% inflation or more. It's probably, I think it's closer to 8 now, and how much everything has gone up and what we have to pay for. I also have a little graphic here from the property appraiser's office, and again, those of us that have lived in Marion County for a while remember in 2006, and it was all about residential real estate. The commercial construction was still pretty flat. But in 2008, we were just under 8,000 residential new construction units. And then when the crash happened, that was in 2006, I'm sorry, and then when the crash happened, we went down in 2009 to 693. So from almost 8,000 to 693, everything just came to a grinding halt. And that flatness continued in 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, very incremental growth. Finally now, today, well, this was 2021, we were back to 3,345 new residential construction from a high of 8,000 back in the day, 2006. So we have to ask ourselves, those of us that lived it, what happened to all that money? We had to make do. We had to have a funding referendum because all of our first and second year teachers got laid off. But even the funding referendum, I think when we first got it, it was 12 to 14 million, didn't come close to closing that gap. So as much as I like to keep my money in my pocket, I would like to see our legislature focus, and they have been. They're supporting public education, and that is so appreciated. We had a great session up there, I would say. I don't know that there's been a time where we were able to meet face-to-face with every single one of our legislators in person. The staffers are great, don't get me wrong, but that showed a lot of respect and thanks to us for the choices that we have made while they've been in office. So it truly is a partnership. So my take on this is let's give the voters a chance to decide what they want to support, what they don't, and then take it from there. I think that's where I am with that. There was one more thing too. I had asked for, I'm really big on career and technical education, and I had asked for some numbers. I wish it was in the form of a standard acceleration chart, but even so, it looked pretty good, and I don't know if it's something that we can get up for everyone to see, but what it comes down to is, in terms of our industry certifications, and that means that our school system did something to help prepare our kids to really be ready to get out in the workforce and be contributors. And those numbers were really impressive. And they were matched with when our funding referendum started. And our focus on the 3 E's, enrollment, enlistment, employment, knowing what your E is, starting that in middle school, were all initiatives that came from us being able to have the money to do that. And I certainly don't want to go backwards, because backwards was pretty bad, those of us that lived it. You know, I don't know. You know, I've never been in a situation in the school system where there seemed to be plenty of money to go around and still have a good, solid reserve funding, where we had teachers that couldn't wait to come and work for us because the wages were high enough and the culture is positive. And maybe we'll get to that point. That's our goal, I think. And when we do, it'll be time to have a different conversation. I think we've all thought this through very carefully. And so for me, I looked at it from the half mill, I looked at it from the 1 mill, I looked at it from the no mill, and I've come to the decision that I'm getting equal input from people that are just as much for the funding referendum as they are concerned about it. And maybe that's just a sign of how divided our society is over many things. But I'm just not personally willing to use my power to potentially create more harm on kids. So we'll let the voters decide that, and I'm one of them. That's where I am.
Thank you, Ms. Thrower. Ms. Campbell.
So I too, as Ms. Thrower so eloquently said, want to put this out to the voters. There are a couple of reasons for that, and I want to start with, whenever I became a school board member, I came in with some preconceived ideas in some ways about budgeting and about how school districts are funded, and frankly have had some education about that through the finance forum opportunities that we have through the Florida School Board Association and others. And revenue generation is not something that school districts have the opportunity to do, but a referendum is one of the only ways that you can actually get the funding to do some of the things that you want to do. What I appreciate about the way this referendum is worded, and I'll liken it to in one of our work sessions discussing how essentially the marketing campaign, for lack of a better term, for this referendum the first time around was all about art and music and PE and bringing those back full-time to our schools. The second time it came around, it was all about safe schools. The referendum language didn't change. Maybe safe schools was added, but the way we're requesting it be done this time around is the exact same language as it was the last time it passed. That includes safe schools, it includes reading, it includes PE and art and music and all of those things. It includes vocational programs, which is that career and technical education that Ms. Thrower was mentioning. It includes meeting class size requirements, which is ensuring that we have enough teachers in our district to meet those class size requirements. It also includes language that says retaining state certified teachers and paraprofessionals. This language is completely appropriate for if this district chose, if the voters chose to bring this referendum back to us and afford us the opportunity to have this 1 mill again. If we did, there may be a different way that that money is spent the next time around. We don't know that. We haven't laid out exactly what that would look like yet. But retaining state certified teachers is something we heard about this evening from public comment. And the way this referendum is worded would afford us some opportunity in that area. In addition to safe schools, and I believe this board is aware of some upcoming conversations we're going to be having about safe schools and what that looks like. I know I'm grateful that I was passing a school today and saw some of the fencing starting to go up, and we're almost finished with that because of this referendum that we've had. But the costs associated with the safe schools initiatives that the legislature is handing down to us they're not fully funding those things that they're putting down. Those are kind of considered as unfunded mandates. And so I believe that the language within this referendum still affords us the opportunity to have, I don't want to use the word leniency because that's not at all what it is. It spells out exactly what this is. And as Ms. Thrower also referenced, the Independent Citizen Financial Oversight Committee, they will say one way or the other if they approve or disapprove of how the money is being allocated. But the most important thing for me, apart from the language and how the language gives us the opportunity to do some of the things that we need to do for students and what's best for students, we're putting it out to the voters. And ultimately, the voters will decide. And as I've referenced before, Senator Baxley and I have had conversation about that. And he says, put it in the hands of the voter. Put it in the hands of the voter. Ultimately, we were each elected because the hands of the voter spoke. And so I believe this is another one of those opportunities where the electorate needs to speak. And we will hear loud and clear what the electorate chooses for us to do. So thank you.
Ms. King?
Yes, I agree with Board Member Thrower and Vice Chair Campbell. They have given numerous reasons why it is so important that we at least get this referendum on the ballot and we allow our voters to choose what they believe is best for Marion County public students. The most compelling reason for my unwavering support is students. I completely understand what that classroom looks like when the students do not go to PE, art, media center. I understand the value of retaining our excellent teachers, our veteran teachers. There was definitely proof with the CTE program. You know, that's a positive. Security, I wish we didn't have to have security, but we live in a day and a time that we do. And I think I've expressed my opinion on this several times. So unless you're going to comment, Chair Cummings.
Thank you. I want to say I fully support putting this out to the voters. And my reasons for supporting this referendum and the language of this referendum is because in this referendum, it's all about support. The support of our students through exposing them to the arts and the music and to the CTE programs, the vocational type programs. It supports our families because in this referendum, it talks about safe schools, so allowing, as a parent, having the assurance to know that their kid is going to a school that's safe and staff know that they're in a work environment that's safe. And it supports our staff with classroom limits as well as retaining highly effective teachers. So I fully support this referendum, and there's really not too much more I need to talk about on this one. So are we ready for a vote? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed have the same sign.
No.
Passes 4-1. May I have a motion to approve to schedule a public hearing for the 2021-2022 recommended instructional materials for adoption for 16 specified courses?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. May I have a motion to approve the First Amendment with Nearpod, Inc.?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Thrower.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. King. Mr. Browning, I understand you pulled item C6.1. You wish to have further discussion?
Yes, sir, I did, Chair. And this is, this follows a pretty routine situation on the consent agenda. And my concerns about how the consent agenda is operating. I am fully happy with having a consent agenda. However, I don't believe that it's being properly used. And so I have pulled this item. I did not consent to it, and I do not recall it at any time in a workshop, much less the last workshop. So I am in agreement with the use of these funds. I do want discussion because the size of the increase is it's pretty big money, $25,000. Without being too redundant in terms of earlier comments, people are asking me, well, why in the world, how did this get on the consent agenda, and why isn't it up for discussion? This is an item that reaches into teaching about our Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's so important for it to be out there. It isn't even close to being routine. So it's celebration time. We need to have a criteria for when an item goes into a consent situation. So it's fine to have them, but wow, can it be distracting and problematic? And I'm under the understanding that there is no possible way for item number 16.1, which is the consent agenda, to be other than approved. So it's an automatic approval without criteria, unless there's some criteria that's been published that I don't know about when staff puts these things into the consent agenda. So that's my reason for pulling it. I am in favor of it, and I'm in favor of celebrating the idea that we're teaching the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, but I do want the people to know about it, and then I want examination on it so that we're right on top of our money there, right on top of our game, and our students learn about our something. This is just amazingly critical and so appropriate for this particular pulling from the non-voting consent agenda. Thank you.
Are we ready to vote? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. May I have a motion to approve the disposition of tangible property and donation to the state of Florida?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Campbell.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. King. Ms. Browning, Mr. Browning, I understand you pulled item C8.1. You wish to have further discussion?
Yes, and similar concerns. I believe this is an opportunity, as I've stated before, perhaps 2 meetings back, but the idea that this is a revenue opportunity. I did hear just prior to the meeting some concerns by staff about, which answered some of the questions that were coming up during the week, that perhaps some of these things could not be taken apart or could not be sold on eBay. I'm not sure about that, but I do know we need to discuss these things. This is $1 million and a huge opportunity for revenue. We heard teachers talking about needing revenue. We've got so many neat opportunities where we can generate revenue, both by bringing in, like we've talked about the Brick City brick situation when we tear something down, or this, $1 million, and these $1 million just keep coming through. And when you're training, when you're doing technical training, If you can use an item that can be broken, that is the absolute best possible prop for laboratory work. So that's one use, and we could sell these nationally, I believe. So I would like to see this be expanded out. I'll go along with it right now, just simply because I don't have a good place, but I'm going to push harder into staff, and I'm going to ask the community for ideas, because as we talk about it, I think folks might just jump ahead and say, wow, I would like to bid on that. I would like to see that. How much have we been getting? That type of thing. That kind of a discussion that can add to our revenue situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ready for vote? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Passed unanimously. May I have a motion to approve the bid 3910MF classroom furniture for central warehouse term contract? Moved by Ms. King,
Second.
seconded by Vice Chair Campbell. Mr. Brown, I understand you pulled item C 10.1. You wish to have further discussion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This item, it's $200,000, incredible amount of money, I believe, when you're talking about salaries, and if you have that in your account, we can do something very positive with it. We've been doing the same bid for a long time, and I really abhor the idea of this kind of thing going into the consent agenda, and here's why. Aside from the fact that we could potentially do really well revenue-wise, but when you have a large amount of money that is repeated contracts that are going out on a regular basis, I have to assume that we're doing an incredibly good job. So let's go down that road just a moment. If we're doing a great job and our people are really working like a BOGO type thing, buy one, get one free, whatever it is, working the system. I've been in business. I mean, this is how the millions of dollars pass with this. The idea that great work, let's just say we have a new person and they're getting the job done, they have an MBA from Harvard, say, and they're just nailing it. And then it goes into a couple $100,000, maybe it was $500,000 that they could have spent, but they got it down and they really nailed it. And then it goes into a consent agenda and it's like lost. All of that, all of the accolades, all of the opportunity is lost. And I think that that's just debilitating. It just beats up on people. And if every time you scored a touchdown, it went into a consent agenda and nobody knew about it, just would not be prudent. It's just not the right way to run a business. So those are the reasons. I can go along. It's this furniture. I do like a push harder on local vendors if they can get freight absorbed. Some of these are out of like California and further away, but I assume that they're getting the job done. I just want to acknowledge that the process has to be out in the open, and let's just assume that everybody is really nailing it, and then I want to hear about that, and I think we can do better on the revenue side with that kind of an approach, and not use a consent agenda, which is just not for this kind of an item, to bury good work. That's my comments, Chair. Thank you, and I am in favor of it.
Let me state for the record about this one. This bid is to purchase classroom furniture and have it stocked in our central warehouse. And I'm saying this because I want the community to be clear that this is not a knee-jerk decision. And the people that took these bids and did it with their due diligence. For the record, 326 invitations to bid were sent out by our purchasing department and advertised publicly on the purchasing department website. 7 vendors submitted a bid. 1 vendor submitted a no bid letter, and 6 vendors are being recommended for award based upon the lowest prices offered, meeting our specifications. So, and I say that because I want the public and the community to know that even though this is a $200,000 bid, this is for furniture for the whole district, classrooms. This is relatively a small, $200,000 is a lot of money, but in the scheme of what we're buying for our students in our classrooms is a relatively small amount. And the diligence that our procurement department, our warehouse department did in getting these bids was not, I don't want them to think that we just flew by the seat of our pants in this. There's a lot of work went behind getting this. So as a district, we are being fiscally responsible and good stewards in this area, because we want our kids to come to school and sit in good seats that's not going to break under them, and make sure that they are in the correct posture. And so I did want to make that known, because I looked at this one too, Mr. Browning. This was one that I asked questions about when we were doing the agenda review, and after I got the information I needed to get, I understood what it was about. It makes complete sense. I wouldn't want to send my kids to school, my grandkids to school, to sit on a bucket with something in their hand trying to do their work. I want them to be in the best environment so they can be educated. So those are my comments. Any other comments, guys? Ready to vote? All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed have the same sign, passes unanimously. May I have a motion to approve the bid 3911 MF School Cafeteria Products for Central Warehouse Term Contract?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Campbell. Seconded by Ms. King. Mr. Browning, I understand you pulled item C 10.2. You wish to have further discussion?
Yes, Chair, thank you. This is very, very similar to the prior item. I believe if we're getting the job done, it needs to get out. Really, your comments were enlightening as well. It's so important that we get this message out and we don't improperly use the consent agenda. That's my concern here. We should discuss some of these things. This is $500,000. $500,000. Every time we, my formula, you all have heard it. The idea is that I believe you can always get 10% out of any deal. That's a lot of money, and it pays a lot of bus drivers or paraprofessionals or teachers. It's incredibly important that we get this information out, and we also get it to the workshops, because vendors look at these workshop tapes. They can even come, it starts a conversation, and some very, very positive business benefits can come. So that's the reason that I have put this on the table rather than be in the consent agenda. I am in favor of it. However, I just want to see every $100,000 get wrestled out of each one of these deals, and they come through. This is like selling cattle. Wow, it's incredible. You just have to get barrels of oil. You have to get your value if you expect your revenues to meet your stockholders' approval. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Ms. Campbell.
Sure. I just want to say, if the purpose of us talking about these tonight has been for no other reason than to give a shout out to our purchasing and central warehouse staff, I think that is well due. We have millions of square feet under roof that we have to then put furniture in, and same thing with this cafeteria supplies and all of that. And they do a fine job and have, and if you read the methodology here, it speaks specifically to the COVID-19 pandemic and the difficulty of obtaining materials, yet we aren't having children sit on buckets, to Chair Cummings' point. So just a shout out to our central warehouse and purchasing and all of those that are responsible for ensuring that we do have what our students need so they can have the best learning environment. And so while this isn't something we typically would talk about, they are a department that potentially doesn't get talked about very much. And so if for no other reason, I'm glad that we've been able to talk about it tonight.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ready to vote? All in favor signify by aye.
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 Pass unanimously. May I have a motion to approve bid 3917 GM laser toner cartridges?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Campbell.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Throer. Mr. Brown, I understand you pulled item C 10.7. You wish to have further discussion?
Yes, Chair, thank you. And again, this, at the risk of being somewhat redundant, this is $120,000, and it has to do with toner. Now, I know in any business I ever ran, if you're spending something at a high number like that, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of the use studies. You can figure out how you're operating and what's going on in terms of the consumption, and that can have an impact. And I think by bringing it up, as Ms. Campbell, Vice Chair Campbell was saying, it's so important. I think it gets it out in the marketplace. On this one, specifically, how something like this is purchased really matters. And I have a longstanding efficiency metaphor for Tire Kingdom. It's a company that does tires, but the idea of if they have a purchasing department that's really nailing it, and they're really doing some very, very top-rate work, and maybe they're getting they're just outdoing everybody else. That information would be just really debilitating if, in fact, somebody just hit a home run, won the Super Bowl, one of the top purchasing departments, and then it goes into a consent agenda where work that was exemplary is now just considered routine and unimportant enough to even talk about. That would be debilitating to me. That's why I brought it up. I'm happy to go ahead and pay this money, but I really would like to see workshop, just small, just short. Hey, guess what, board? We have reduced toner costs from $120,000 to $97,000. That type of thing, I'm here to celebrate. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments?
Just from a historical perspective, thank you, Chair. There was a time when almost every employee that needed one had their own printer with their own cartridges and things like that, and it was a change for everyone to not have that convenience of sitting right there and being able to print off what you needed and having to send it to the central printer of your office pod or school office and then march yourself down there and get it. But when I read this and I saw, toner cartridges, it kind of reminded me, how far we've come in being able to print remotely and all of that. So, yeah, good times.
Thank you, Ms. Orr. Ready to vote? All in favor signify by aye.
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 Opposed have the same signs. Passed unanimously. May I have a motion to approve contract between owner and construction services related to HVAC replacement at North Marion Middle School, project number 22-100?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. King,
Second.
seconded by Vice Chair Campbell. Mr. Brown, I understand you pulled item C 12.1. You wish to have further discussion?
Yes, Chair, thank you. The HVAC is, especially coming off the pandemic, is a big deal, in addition to just good, clean, healthy air, and then our moving from the building that we were previously in. North Marion, I didn't pull Howard Middle, which is 2.9 million. This one is $500,000, 4.60. Again, the same thing applies, but in this one, I have not seen, and it's been 5 months, nationally, out at the, locally out at the Veterans Village retirement home, where I was involved in putting ionic health systems in there through some foundations, and they've had zero issues through the pandemic, and thank the good Lord for that with our veterans. However, the idea that on a purchasing basis, we're putting in systems that are old technology. And I do this like this idea that people didn't believe that you could land rockets, bring rockets back, land them, refuel them, and reuse them. And if you were able to do that, NASA would have done it already. That's just nonsense. We've got ionic health systems out there that are used routinely in dentist's office, ORs, just all sorts of enlightened folks. And no, it isn't. It's certainly proven to be correct. I mean, you just ionize the air, and it makes it very difficult if you're a virus to kind of sneak through in the atmosphere without getting stuck to a HEPA filter, for example. I'm no engineer, but that's just what's going on. I see nothing in that regard in this, and it just absolutely infuriates me that we do not have the benefit when people are inside buildings and this technology exists. I would at least like to see us vote it down. I want it to be included, involved on a regular basis, and I won't give up on this because the health of our students and our employees are critical. It goes without being said. So I will go along with these because HVAC systems are critically important. You have to have them, but they could be better. And I'm just going to put a number to it. We might be at 80%. We might be at 50% on this. I want to see this ionic health system technology be scrubbed and watched and looked at and analyzed. And if we find a way to put it in play, if in fact we decide to, then do it. But don't ignore it. And don't put it in a, this is close to $3 million worth of material. Don't put it in a consent situation where it doesn't get spoken to. It must be spoken to, in my opinion. Thank you.
Ms. Sorrell?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We had a really deep and detailed work session on this because this is something that I think I remember, Board Member Browning, when you came on the board, you were all about this, and it was really interesting conversation. I think about how the air in airplanes has changed for the better. I mean, those things used to stink, and now they're, I think, a lot more healthy. So I was all ears on it, and I remember, I don't know if the rest of the board does, a very detailed work session about it and what was the best fit for our schools and the number of schools and the configurations of schools and just all of the variables. And I believe that's how we landed, or not we, I believe that's how staff landed on this particular recommendation. Is this ringing a bell with anyone else?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
And I appreciate Mr. Browning's willingness to talk about these items. I do, but I also understand that that some things are beyond our expertise, and some things we need to leave to our folk to handle and bring to us, and we make judicious decisions. I don't want to get to the point where we're questioning their motives, their intent, or their reasonings for doing certain things or not doing certain things. I think it's our job to be board members, to deal with policies, procedures, budgets, and those type of things, but the operations is the superintendent's, and the superintendent should bring those things to us, and we need to listen to it, and if there's some helpful suggestions, I think I think they're willing for us to give those suggestions. I just don't want to, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer. I read those type of articles as well, and I'm always going to ask, are we doing the latest and greatest and most economical thing for our students? But again, it has to be economical, and it has to be, again, being good stewards of what we have. I understand that technology that Mr. Browning is talking about a little bit. I'm not an expert on it, but I don't want the public to think that we are taking shortcuts and just putting in some old stuff. We're doing what we need to do to make sure that the district is running properly and appropriately. So that's my comment on that. Any other comments? All in favor, ready to vote? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Thank you for all that spirited discussion, Mr. Browning, and board members for that. May I have a motion to approve the following cash or tangible donations that have a total value of $32,970? $2,500 to Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary School from their business partner, Doctors Urgent Care, via the Public Education Foundation of Marion County. $25,000 to Hillcrest Public Schools from an anonymous donor. $1,970 to North Marion High School from One Blood, Inc. $2,500 to Osceola Middle School from their business partners, Doctors Urgent Care, via the Public Education Foundation of Marion County. $1,000 to Silver River Museum from Lisa and Charles Saub. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Campbell.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Throer. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Ms. Throer, tonight, could you give us our thanks for this?
Absolutely. It's always interesting to me every 2 weeks to see where all of our support comes from. And this week, Doctors Urgent Care has really stepped up. We have an anonymous donor that comes through every single year with $25,000 to Hillcrest School. Never wants any accolades, but you can sure count on the check. One Blood, we're getting the medical side this time around, and then private donors. They're as varied as our needs are, and it's so appreciated, and we truly can't thank you enough on behalf of everyone on this board and the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. The following administrative briefing and work session is scheduled for March 3rd, 2022 at 9:00 a.m. The purpose of the work session is to discuss annual reports by charter schools, annual investment report, fiscal year 2021-2022, budget update as of December 31st, 2021, accelerated academy, strategic plan presentation, and charter schools discussion. The next special administrative briefing and work session is scheduled for March 29th, 2022 at 9:00 a.m. The purpose of this special work session is to discuss Neola policy updates. All right. Board comments. Attorney Powers, we're going to start with you.
I would point out that March 29th, 2022, the Neola policy update session that we are doing, we will be working with board bylaws, and among those bylaws are 0165, I believe it is, .01, which speaks to the construction of the agenda. And so there is in keeping with some of our discussions tonight regarding consent agenda and how we structure an agenda, that may be an appropriate time for discussion because we have to, go through each of those policies. So I'd mark both your calendar and also your books that we've printed for you regarding those issues. Apart from that, I have nothing additional except to say thanks to community for their participation, and thank you also to the board for everything that you do for the students of Marion County.
Thank you. Ms. Elena Martinez-Lopez. Thank you. Superintendent.
Thank you, sir. Chair and members of the board, I do have a question for you to consider, if you would. We would like to bring forward a resolution regarding the COVID-19 current conditions, and we would like to bring forward a resolution for COVID-19 regarding uncompensated leave and those provisions we've discussed previously. And we think that the timing is important to do that sooner than later. One option is to look at the work session already on March 3rd, which is, as I shared with you in briefings last week, quite lengthy. And I know we also have 2 attorney-client sessions as well. So that is a full day already. The other options would include a special meeting, another additional meeting, or we could add it to a discussion item on the school board agenda. Typically, we would always want to bring that type of item to you first for discussion, but timing is an issue here so that we can get your feedback and your decision.
Board members, this is the item that we talked about as far as the leave for COVID.
That's correct. That's correct. And we're prepared to bring a resolution forward for your consideration.
As the old one sunsetted January, the end of January, I think. So how do you guys want to proceed forward? Do we want to add it to the 3rd, which is already very lengthy, or are we willing to schedule another one just for that item? I'm open to scheduling just one.
I am
just for that item.
Depending on the day.
Yeah. Mr.
Yes,
Brown.
I don't see that as being highly controversial, is it, in terms of time? Are you anticipating something I'm not seeing?
It's me?
Yeah,
It's not
in terms
something,
of
it's
setting
not
the
something
date.
controversial. It's just that we leave our staff unprotected right now.
Yeah, so the sooner the
So the
better.
sooner the better, yes.
Yes.
Correct.
No, I'm not concerned at all about the time. Let's,
Yeah.
time in the meeting.
Correct.
Time to make it work, absolutely accelerate it. The sooner the better. Do it tonight if it was legal, but it isn't. So let's do it as quick as possible.
Well, we think I agree with the superintendent. I think it does need to be fully discussed so that we don't get to a school board meeting saying we need to discuss it. I'd rather for it to be in me personally, I'd rather for it to be in a work session and then we can discuss it. So if you guys are open to having either adding it to the 3rd or having a special school board meeting, special work session just for that item, no additional item. Would that be, am I saying that correct?
That's correct, Chair. And as a note of clarification, it would come under the administrative briefing on the 3rd, which I typically try to keep items off of that so we could properly notice. But due to the publication, right, Ms. Martinez-Lopez is confirming that we would not have sufficient time. So it would need to come under the briefing, and I would want to make that really clear.
So we really couldn't even get on the 3rd, so we really need to put it under special.
Let's do it.
Yeah, do it.
Let's look at Elaine, you have a calendar?
Yes, sir.
That we can look at? Guys, let's try to get this in as soon as we can.
Do we want to do it on March 8th for the special work session?
Do you want to do March 1st? Are you talking about doing a separate?
Can we do it before the 3rd? Or do we
March
still have to
1st
have
would
7
work.
days?
You have to have a full 7 days.
Okay.
Does tomorrow start the Would March 1st be too soon? That Tuesday? That's too soon? Okay.
So, the 4th,
We could do the 4th.
Friday morning? That's
You're
March
talking
4th.
about- You're talking about March 1st?
4th,
4th.
Because we're not adding it to the 3rd.
right.
I won't be here.
You won't, okay.
Doesn't mean you still can't do it, but
I think we'd like your input.
I'd rather just get it done on the 3rd. We're here anyway and
I'm
do
in
it
agree-
during
I'm
the
in
superintendent's
agreement with that.
briefing, and we know we're gonna be here a long time anyway.
She just said we can't legally put it on the 3rd.
But
We can't.
But because we're not voting on it, right?
If I may correct, it can be on the 3rd, but it'll be under my administrative briefing, so it won't be listed as an item
won't
because
be
we don't have
listed as an
sufficient
agenda
time
item.
to advertise it as a separate item, and I just want to bring that
And then it
forward.
would be voted on at the meeting on the 8th.
Correct.
is that the most expeditious way to do it? Or is there another, if we did it on the 4th, it's really not buying us any time because we would still be voting on it on the 8th, correct?
Right.
Well, we can do it retro.
I would recommend that placement for, as you've discussed, placement on the agenda for the 3rd board work session for discussion, and then the vote, since we can't take action at a work session, occur on the 8th. And that would give us the appropriate time.
I'm
Correct.
fine. If you want to add to the 8th, to the 3rd, I don't have an issue with that.
Right.
It wouldn't be advertised.
So it will not be advertised to the public, so the public won't be able to say that we didn't put it on the
Exactly.
agenda. That's what you're.
But
Correct.
But it
Correct.
will be on the March 8th agenda in full, where it can be under discussion, and we can have, the public can speak on it, and all of that can occur on the day we vote.
I just don't want us to get to the March 8th, and then we hear comments that we did not discuss it.
We can separately advertise this particular edition if we need to, but I think what she's saying is bring it for the administrators, bring it under the administrative review. That gives us the ability to address it on the 3rd and then vote on it the 8th. So I'm not sure that if there's something I'm misunderstanding, but I'm not.
Is the
I'm
question,
hearing we can do it for the 4th, but we can't do it for the 8th because of advertising?
No, you can still, if we do it on the 4th,
If we do it on the 4th, there's enough time to advertise the 7 days. If we do it on the 3rd, it would be under administrative briefing under the superintendent, which means if anyone looks at the work session agenda, they would not see COVID-19 as a topic. So those that would want to speak to it would not know, therefore would not come forward and speak to that topic.
Right.
And then on the 8th, we might have some people that say they didn't have the opportunity to speak on the topic
Correct.
because it wasn't separately noted so that they could see that topic was coming.
But it can be added to the work session agenda on board docs at any time, correct?
No, it would be under the administrative briefing under Dr. Gullett.
I
and
see.
there is no documentation that can be added under administrative review?
That is correct.
correct.
And it's too late to add it as an agenda item to the 3rd.
That is correct.
That's correct. I want us to be, crystal clear to the public about any items of such magnitude, because I don't want to be, to give the appearance that we're not being transparent.
And that goes, because that's the truth. In other words, we are being transparent.
Sure.
And so let's just do it. I don't think there's
March
any-
4th?
Yeah, there isn't just make it right. Beam me up, Scotty. Let's just make this thing absolutely correct, for sure. And move ahead.
Okay, so if
I
you
would
do
like
it,
a full, I would like a full agenda, a full population if one day 5 of us are here theoretically, because we can't predict the future, but, I'd like to set it so you can be here,
and sadly, the 4th I can't. And
Oh,
I
the
do not
4th
want to
is
be
the
the one holding up the show for something that's so important for our employees. So I will give the benefit to the rest of my board.
I also have concerns that if we attempt to place it for advertising tomorrow, and then we're told for some reason that it can't run for advertising for until, a different day that's a perpetual problem we run into with print advertisement. Now, for board docs, it's a different matter. But for the print advertisement, we regularly attempt to advertise something and find out it won't be actually printed for several days, which means that date becomes the new date. So 7 days turns into 10 or 11, and then we have some notice requirement issues. So to the degree that we can advertise within board docs, that's sufficient. But I don't have direct contact with the folks who do the advertising. So
If we did it on the 7th, Elena,
I mean,
and
the
the
folks
next
at
board
the,
meeting would be the 8th, would we still be in compliance? The 7th is on a Monday, and then
And then put
as
it
a
on.
work session?
And the work session's on the 8th.
The board
The
meeting's
board
on the
meeting
8th.
where we
Board
would
meeting's
approve
on the
it.
8th. The only thing is that the agenda, of course, would have already been published, so therefore that would go on as an item. But if you all are in consensus to do that, we can move forward that way.
I feel
And do
more
it on the
comfortable
7th.
with
With
that.
March 7th?
March 7th, Monday morning. Will you be available, Ms. Thorough?
See. March 7th, Monday morning at 9?
9? I didn't mean to say 8. I really didn't mean to say 8.
That's okay, I have something at 8 and at 9, so it doesn't really matter.
10? Because that's going to be the only item.
Yeah, it all depends on the school visits, what we want to do about those. Dr. Gully?
Right.
What's on?
That's the week when I've invited you all to go visit schools with me, each of the board members.
I have an attendance response committee at 8, and then
following, yes.
school walks at 9. And if we meet at 10, then that's fine, or I'll miss something. This COVID resolution has got to get done. Our employees need it. We need to get it done.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes.
Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair, and certainly we can reschedule that. If we're looking at the 7th, I might propose that the next day is the school board meeting and everyone is planning to be here. So there's really not much difference between the 7th and 8th, and we could just do a special meeting on the 8th.
Right before school board meeting?
Because at this point, there's not a
Right.
variance
Right.
between the discussion
Right.
and the item, and it's just a consideration. So it's not to inconvenience everyone.
so we would have 2 advertised meetings. We would need to we'd need to open one, conclude it, adjourn it for the purpose specifically of the resolution, and then proceed into the remainder of the school board meeting,
So
or
let's
vice
do that
versa.
one at 3 o'clock.
What I would suggest, though, is also that is a day that we have some attorney-client session
On the
information
8th?
as well. So
On the 8th?
no, not on the 8th. My apologies.
Yeah.
Disregard.
On the 8th, can we do it 3 o'clock, 3:30 on the 8th?
3:30?
3:30? 3:30, Mr. Browning?
I,
That's a regular scheduled school board night.
yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's perfect, yes.
3:30, Superintendent?
Thank
Elena?
you.
Yes, sir.
So we will do 3:30 on March 8th, which is right before the board meeting, and we'll come out of that and go into our board meeting. Attorney
Perfect.
Powers?
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you, and thank you for your support of our staff and the conversations tonight. Thank you.
Yes, any other?
That's it. I'll keep it simple. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Browning?
Yes. Okay. Somewhat unplanned, totally unplanned, but I really want to make comment about that escalation of the situation tonight. I would like to see even if it has to be an executive session, I don't know, but I want to see some sort of a plan for people approaching this stage situation. That seems totally appropriate to me. Then the lady trying to hand something when nobody's there to take it from her, you know, so.
Mr. Browning?
Yes. What I'm saying is.
Coming from a law enforcement thing.
Yes.
We're getting ready to kind of go into some security things that you don't want to
Okay,
advertise.
well,
So
let's-
can we?
Yeah, yeah, so,
Thank
all
you.
right, so let me just say, when I leave here, I want to clear the air. I had asked Mr. Schmidt, so I am culpable in this, I had asked Mr. Schmidt to get me the lady's name and phone number. And then he was asked to leave the property, I guess. I don't know, but I asked.
I got
so
you.
that's who
That's
who sent him out.
I don't want us to get into something legal that we're not really
Okay,
involved in.
I don't either, but I'm just clearing the air because we're here tonight, and that's, so I'm saying, I asked Mr. Schmidt to get me that phone, the lady's phone number, and I also received the packet, and I took it to the attorney. I thought that was very nicely done. They asked me to do it, and I thought that was the appropriate procedure.
And that part,
to take.
to be clear, was not the problem. I have it here. I will take the time to look it over and figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the problem. The problem is someone coming up on the stage during the middle of a meeting and doing this "you've been served" and throwing it across the room sort of situation. That's the conduct that was not appreciated and that our board won't tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this information. Any information that is given to the attorney that regards the possibility of a lawsuit or anything like that, I need time to look at it, understand what it is, and find out what the next steps to be taken are. But that's the problem that arises, is when someone gets emotional and decides to, be coming up as though they're going to rush the stage and throw something up at the board members or something.
And I think
that's the problem.
Yeah, I think that's an inappropriate description of it. And I hope, if we have cameras, can we agree, just leave, do not scrub the cameras or anything like that? Because to me, I don't think we have procedures on how somebody hands something to you from that area. They have to come through the door, I guess. And then if they're told no, then they have to put it there, I suppose, or they launch it to you. I don't know, but I'm just saying,
It has
we need
not
to
been-
calm down and be appropriate and
It has not been standard since I've been on this board that we get anything from the public that has not already been gone through the attorney. That has not been the standard. And definitely to have someone come up on we're in a different day and age, and our safety as well as the safety of, you have board members who have their back to that. We've had incidences where people have shot board members in Florida, and I will stand toe to toe with anybody. Our safety is just as important, and if the appearance is not right, we're going to stop. They're not going to come up on the stage. That's one reason why we have school security. That's one reason. That's just not standard protocol in any meeting, any governmental meeting. That is not standard. That is not standard. It goes through a certain person before you submit documentation to a board. So,
Okay. Well, we can agree.
And for the record, we would never scrub a video or anything like that.
Thank you.
So that implication was just
whether
not
we would
gonna
or
happen.
not, I'd just like to go on a record.
Yes, sir.
It's appropriate. Now, so with the chair's permission, may I
Yes, sir.
continue?
Please continue.
Thank you. So let's see, experienced teachers. Wow, it was a very, very important, again, that just happened tonight, but very, very important comments were made in terms of these teachers that have been around a long time. Starting there, going to the new teachers, it's critically important that we have the funding, and that's really why I go at this money so ferociously, if you will. We've got to do better. We can't have an adversarial relationship with our employees. I want people to get paid, especially at the lower levels, where it's just very, very difficult, and they bring forward such touching remarks, and I think important. We've got to run this like a business. We've got to save dollars. We have the dollars. We've got a lot of money, and we've got to recognize our employees. Next item, the microphone down there is awful, awful. I have time and time again, I would like to, I'll even pay for it myself, if we could get an operation, a way to evaluate the sound here, because so often the message is just doesn't get through up here. If you all are getting it fully, it could be my age, but I don't think so. I've tested it with my own recording with the phone, and it's awful, that microphone. So if that's our central pickup for people addressing this board, maybe we could bring them here, they could walk up here and right there and just, and then the sound goes out there. I don't know, we just got to do a better job, and I would like to see it technically evaluated, and if we need a different mic there, we put a different mic there and have it be as effective as possible. Disciplinary review, again, by a person coming to speak. I couldn't agree with that more. We cannot accelerate this business about going into law enforcement so quickly. We cannot do it like these young boys the lady was referring to. It's just improper for us to be thinking law enforcement, law enforcement. I mean, I've been involved, I was a police commissioner in the city of Winter Springs. I understand how things work, and we do not need to be thinking law enforcement in our first step. And I despise prisons. I refuse to think that we would ever look at a third grader and worry about giving them a number or getting them involved. I say tear the prisons down. Of course, we can't. We have to have prisons, but it can be incredibly minimal, and there's other ways to go along, and education does have an impact. However, I will not ever allow it even to be around me to target young people and say that they're likely destined for a prison, because that is just something that is abhorrent to my way of thinking. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you,
That was
Mr.
probably
Browning.
enough for a meeting. Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Browning.
Yes, sir.
Ms. King.
Okay, thank you. For weeks, we have sat here to our community, to this board. I have heard that we are not transparent, that we sweep things under the carpet, that we have improper use of a consent agenda. And I have to simply state that none of that is true. And I know, Ms. Thrower, you did an excellent job last week of talking about the process, but I, again, am going to talk about the process of how things make it to the board and to the community and how they are voted on. And it begins with our employees and our superintendent, the experts that are in our school district. They are the experts to bring forward to then, step number one, experts bring it to the chair. The chair has a meeting with the superintendent, deputies, directors, our employees. That's step number two. The chair decides if it will come forward on the agenda. Step three, every board member is presented with this agenda, the consent agenda, whatever, not even whatever we're going to call it. It is our agenda, our consent agenda. The board members, hopefully they're doing their due diligence. And if something they're not familiar with or something catches their eye, they can pull that for discussion if it's something that's not routine or something that they feel that it needs to be addressed. Step four, our community is also, they can pull up this agenda, the consent agenda, the agenda, 7 days prior before the board actually votes on it. We have discussion. If there are community members that see something that is a concern for them, they can bring it to our up for a discussion. And there's, the public comment. So right there is evidence of 4, possibly 5 examples of how this school district and this school board is transparent. So last week, I was talking about students that, it's been escalating, that we've been having discipline problems. But there's a problem that is also escalating, and that's sometimes when the student is the innocent student is having to take the beating. And I have to sit here and say tonight, I am not afraid of the antics that have been played. They do not intimidate me. And frankly, our employees, and it's several departments and people have been attacked. And I'm going to request and ask that it stops, because our ultimate purpose is children. I am here to serve the children, and tonight I'm veered off. This board was veered off. And and here's the greatest thing. When we were all served today, Mr. Browning was the one that wasn't, but I also noticed that packet of paper that went to our attorney was presented by you. So I'm going to assume that you, sir, served this board tonight. And I just have to question and ask, is that serving our children? And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Ms. Thor?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Ms. Hoteling, and I think her husband's name is Jean, long-term employees, fantastic, well-recognized of our school system. There are 2 things that I know that we're committed to doing better, and one of them is our contracts. And we've made great strides in legal with that, and I thank you very much for that, Jeremy. It means the world. And when it comes to negotiating our teachers' contracts, that's something that is so important for both, I don't even want to say sides, for management and the union to be doing whatever they possibly can to remove any obstacles to negotiating, and that it's all done in good faith. In other words, this pandemic has pretty much stunk, but we have learned some things. And so in my mind, why can't negotiations start much earlier? Start in the summer. If the committees, I hope they're getting paid, or if they're not, they're volunteering, Zoom in. But let's get this going, and let's be a district where we can proudly say all of our employees that are represented by a union, know what their contract's going to be as early as possible. As many barriers as possible are reduced. I know that we have to have a working budget to know what we're going to be doing. I recognize that. But having been an employee and having been in a represented status a long time ago, I always wondered why am I signing a contract now that was like from last year, I know we can do better. And I say that both management and the union reps. Again, we're working on behalf of employees that we have tasked, as Board Member King said so passionately, we are tasked with doing what's best for kids. And when you have employees that feel really good about coming to work every day, that feel like they're being compensated as commensurately as possible, then the whole organization is just going to flow more smoothly. So it has created an issue. While it's wonderful that our younger employees were recognized, and then we were tasked with that not fully funded opportunity to get as close as possible to the 47.5. And then where did that leave our veteran employees? So I feel like this board really recognizes that. I know I do, and we're committed to making that better. So in good faith, I think is probably a good and strong statement to be thinking about tonight. Everything that we do, whether you're a kid, family, community, let's remember why we're here, and it's in good faith to do what's best for kids. Moving on to some really great things that are going on. There was a career day at North Marion High School just this past week. I believe, after talking with Principal Sales, 57 businesses showed up, and including my accountant. And this is the second time that Dugan Joyner has worked with our kids directly and really giving them an idea about the world of accounting and finance. And you may not want to pay taxes, but when you get your first paycheck, guess what? They're going to be on there. And that kind of connection, and my hat is off to the Public Education Foundation again tonight, because in my experience, I don't think we've ever had every single school with a business partner, let alone more than one. So we're bringing all these tendrils together to strengthen our schools. And it really is amazing. I'm very much looking forward to my visit to Ms. Bender's class at Westport on Friday. She's the Golden Apple teacher that showed up, member, and very directly said, hey, school board, don't assume. Come see us. See what we're doing and how you can be helpful and how you can support us. That really resonates with me. It's fine to be a colonel, but if you don't have any, if you're trying to lead and you don't have any followers, then you're probably not going to win the war. And getting in the trenches is always a good idea. Saturday is the very special arts at the Appleton, and I think this board all supports the arts. And VSA is very close to my heart. This was referendum dollars put to great use to actually have an art teacher at Hillcrest. And I know there's a lot of other schools that participate as well, but it's very special to me to know that our most special kids are getting the same opportunities as typically developing students. We also on Saturday have the Black History Month banquet. I believe that's to honor Dr. N.H. Jones, and you may be speaking more about that, Chair Cummings. But that has got some amazing details to it, and so that's on what's happening. And then we have the Southeastern Youth Fair. So there's just so many great things that we're trying to do and opportunities for kids. And I think as long as we keep that in the forefront, we're going to be just fine. Speaking of innovation, I had mentioned this a while back because when we signed the contract to get the new buses, and right about the time we signed the contract, it became more and more clear that electric vehicles are really becoming a thing. And I know in some, mountainous areas like maybe Colorado or whatever, having an electric bus, it might not be able to make it up the hill. But here in Florida, we don't necessarily have that issue. And my understanding is they've improved them now to where it only takes 2 to 3 hours to charge them, and they can go 300 miles on a charge, maybe more cost effective. If the city's interested in doing it with the city buses, maybe we could even share charging stations or something. That's where the excitement of innovation becomes so much fun to be a board member, is that when you keep your eye on the ball, and the ball is kids, and the ball is making it to where we're doing all we can to be fiscally responsible and innovative. So I'd like to have a little more conversation about that. It'd be interesting to see what the Thomas Company has to say. I know there would be training involved. I don't think any of our employees has really ever worked on an electric bus, but maybe they had never worked on other buses either. I mean, it's just all part of the learning. It got me thinking too when it comes to rent. It's no secret that rent has gotten so high around here, and I think about what our teachers and our first responders and our support staff get paid. How can they even afford to have a job with us? Because housing has become so exorbitant, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. I don't know what we can do about that right this second, but I know what we can't do, and that's not have really good teachers and really good staff supporting our kids. So again, that could be an opportunity to collaborate with some of our other local governments to see what land is available. I don't know. To me, the possibilities are endless when you're really committed to the mission. And then finally, Board Member King, you mentioned this last week about no one should have to sit there and take a beat down. I believe that the review of our Code of Student Conduct is coming up tomorrow. It's time for some real deep and serious conversations, because we know that if a kid gets off track, and especially if they're missing a whole year of school, that really sets them up for some pretty bad outcomes. And we all love those stories where, the kid makes it, they come from very difficult circumstances and they overcome and they have resiliency, and that's awesome. We all want to celebrate that. But we also know that our jails are too full. And anything we can do at our level, including pre-K, to help in partnership with families, get our kids going on the right track. We are a community. And community strong community schools go hand in hand. So we've got some innovators on this board. We've got some big thinkers, and so let's shift our focus to that. And the rest of it, in my mind, is just buzz. That's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Yeah, so Ms. Thurber and I are on the same wavelength on a couple of these. Those of you who see me, I'm like moving things on because I keep it electronically, and so I'm like moving bullets up because of what Ms. Thurber was saying. So I too am looking forward to attending Ms. Bender's class at Westport High School soon as we can get our schedules to align. She actually wanted me to come on the same day as Ms. Thurber, and I was like, nope, can't do that. So, but I'm working to get that scheduled as well. I also was going to mention I'm looking forward to Southeastern Youth Fair, and also looking forward to seeing the work of the committee editing the Student Code of Conduct, because I believe we would all agree that we need some changes there. This section of our comments are classified as board comments and committee reports. So I did want to share, as your representative to the City of Ocala Planning and Zoning Commission, there are a couple of upcoming housing projects that are going to impact our schools pretty significantly. And so kudos to especially Saddlewood Elementary. Kudos to the principal, Mr. Hurley and Mr. McFadden, who attended that commission meeting, where Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the City of Ocala, where they all, Mr. Hurley and Mr. McFadden spoke. We're going to kind of carry that same, I want to say, dog and pony show to city council meetings that are upcoming as well. We weren't speaking in denial of the project, but we just wanted to educate the commission on how the impacts are going to be for our schools, Saddlewood, Liberty, and Westport, for one particular project that they were reviewing. Now it goes to city council for decision. Actually, in two separate meetings, they'll be discussing it. But it's so important that we're a part of those conversations, so I'm grateful to be the representative in that setting. But actually, one of the members from the commission texted me later the next day to say, how can I get more information? Because I want to be more educated on this when things come up like this to us. And so I know Mr. Ayers also has worked on some of that. And so just kudos to our staff, because that was a 5:30 meeting on a day of the week, that on a Monday, and that they were all there, and we'll have to do that again a couple more times. Again, not necessarily speaking against a project, but just to educate the city council on how these decisions are going to impact us and what that looks like for us, how we're funded, and how capital funding is non-existent for something like that. Also wanted to offer another congratulations. I know it was 3 hours ago that these folks were here, but another congratulations to the students in Ms. Dorsey's class at Dr. N.H. Jones Elementary. They are friends of my son because he is also a fifth grader there. But I wanted to let you all know that that was a classroom that we actually took Representative Hayes Henson to. So she was able to learn from Ms. Dorsey and what the students were doing with the NASA project and all. And frankly, the work that those kids did as fifth graders is just truly phenomenal, that they were selected, and the work they did was amazing. So kudos to them again. Also glad to be a part of the school-related employee caravan that a couple of us attended. Congratulations to our winners again on that. And I also want to give another shout out to School Choice Office for sending out hundreds, if not thousands, of school choice placements around the district this week. I know I had one come to my house, and so I should have gotten the exact number from Mr. Ayers, but thank you for all their hard work, because I know filtering the hundreds and thousands of applications that they receive in that School Choice Office cannot be an easy task. And finally, I want to reference, and I vow to continue to bring this up in every meeting that we have the opportunity to, but the last board meeting 2 weeks ago, I talked about data. I talked about D's and F's of our students in the first semester. I talked about attendance, talked about parent engagement. And I want to stress now that as any good public relations practitioner knows, there's a formula to good communication and to good planning, actually. It's called RPI, and my fellow APRs in the audience who are still here, I'm going to just indulge for just a moment. But it's research, plan, implementation, and evaluation. So as Reverend Cummings stated last meeting, now that we have this research that we gathered, now what are we going to do with it? And so we're actually at the P stage now of the RPI. So we're in that planning stage now. And I suspect that we will have measurable objectives and some strategies and tactics coming from multiple places. I know I was already talking to some staff members about that a bit today. But we aren't fully ready to implement those strategies just yet, because now that we have the research, now we have to do the plan. And once we get that plan, then we can start implementing some of them. So I also want to take the time to say a big thank you to our teachers who are already engaging with parents. So I know that I stressed the number of parents that hadn't logged into Family Access and Skyward. So I want to also give a shout out to our teachers, because some of our teachers are doing a very fine job of making sure that parents know how to access information and are engaging with parents. And as well as the parents who are working hard to open a line of communication about struggling students. And so we do have engaged parents in our district, and I do believe it's important to offer that recognition. I also have learned that we do have some limitations that we have to our communication, and so that maybe one parent has Skyward Family Access, and so they may be getting communication, and if it's a shared custody situation with families, then both parents may not be getting the communication, and so that may be a little bit of a challenge. But I do want to express that anyone out there interested in getting Skyward Family Access, please reach out. Ms. Slaughter mentioned it, that parents are needing more access in schools when she was expressing public comment tonight. I can attest. I mean, I have one in elementary, one in middle, one in high school. It is such a transition from elementary school to the communication that just changes at the middle school level, and then obviously at the high school level too. But for parents who may not know how to access Skyward Family Access, I encourage you to reach out to your school and learn how to do that. For parents who haven't engaged in communication with teachers, take a moment to email them right now even. I doubt that you're paying attention, but I'd say take a moment, email a teacher. Same thing with a teacher. Reach out to that parent. Maybe you only have one parent's email address because of the way Skyward aggregates that information, but do your best to try to reach out. I know as a parent of a freshman high school student, this pandemic has not done us any favors. We were unable to attend orientation because of quarantines. Our open house was canceled. I haven't met any of my own son's teachers, frankly, any of them. So parents, I understand how important communication can be, but this board is very interested in encouraging parent-teacher conferences again. I'm sure we've kind of all said that at some point. And so much can be accomplished through good communication, and that can be through a parent-teacher conference. It doesn't have to happen face-to-face. So I encourage teachers, reach out to parents. Parents, reach out to teachers. See what we can have done through good communication. I always like to use the phrase, communication builds trust, and trust builds relationships. And through relationships are how we can get things done. So my hope is that we'll continue to address our students' challenges, our student apathy, our parent engagement, and work to make changes that we can see between now and the end of the school year. Because I do believe that if we make very concentrated changes now, even though we're halfway through our third quarter, if we make some very concentrated efforts to increase communication now and to increase our student energy and effectiveness in their classroom settings, then we truly can see some measurements change by the end of this school year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. Okay, let's do it this way. I want to start with some positives. tonight. And I'll end with the positive, so that leaves you to understand what the middle is going to look like. First, I want to commend our audiovisual team tonight. You guys do a tremendous job all the time. You're not on camera because you're working the camera. You're not heard because you're making sure that we're heard, and you're making sure that everyone else is heard. So I want to commend you guys. Always, you sit there on the stools. People may not, the folks that's watching you from home don't even know that you're sitting on an uncomfortable stool for a long length of time. And I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate Kevin. I tell my sound guy at the church, he make me sound good, and you guys make us sound good. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing all the time. It's thankless. People just assume it just happens, but thank you. And you guys are working out the kinks and making it and getting better. It's getting better and better. So thank you. Truly, I thank you guys. I do want to give another positive before I get to the other part. This is February. Of course, it's Black History Month as well. I'm going to talk about that. But this is also Appreciation Month for our Academic Services and Area Superintendents Department. So we thank them because we have some dynamic area superintendents, some great folk in our academic services who are striving hard to make sure that all of our students are getting what they need to be successful later in life. I thank them so much for what they do all the time. I too, and I don't want to be a negative Nancy, I've listened to the community gave some wonderful input on certain things, and some things that were said, that have been said for weeks and weeks, are really not even relevant to this board. But we've sat and we listened, and we're going to continue to listen because we encourage public comment. And sometimes people ask, well, how come you guys never say anything when they're saying certain things that just isn't true? Well, that's the community's opportunity to stress or express themselves to us, and we are to listen. And it's not for us to give a off-the-cuff answer to anything. I think wise people take the time to listen first, and then take that information that they've heard, and then go back and work it out, and then give good answers, not just answers to pacify people. So to the community, if you don't see us respond to your comments, it's not because we're overlooking your questions, it's not because we are minimizing your questions, it's because we want to make sure that we give you accurate information in all truth and transparency. I've heard things these past few weeks, some great questions, but I've also heard some disheartening things. Ms. King, you kind of stole my thunder on how this consent agenda gets to where it is, how it gets to today, how it gets to Tuesday night at 5:30. And it is, and you said 5 steps, and I agree. I have 4 steps. So it is a process that does not just happen when the superintendent wakes up or I wake up. The superintendent and their staff do a tremendous job of having the items that need to be discussed, placing them on the agenda, and that's one check. And then the superintendent, the team, the attorney, and myself, we have a meeting. It's called agenda review. We go over the whole agenda, not just the consent agenda, but the whole entire agenda. And in that meeting, there are some things that we pull. If the public noticed tonight, there were a lot of items that were pulled by the agenda review committee. Why? Because we felt that they needed to be discussed. It was not to hide anything or anything like that. We felt that those items need to be discussed because we wanted to be clear with the public. But even that's the second step. Even after that, once the agenda review has been completed, the agenda is posted to our board members and to the public. So then the board members have a fail-safe catch mechanism, and then the community has the opportunity. And so there are ample opportunities for any of these things to be discussed, questioned, scrutinized, and criticized. They're there. They're there. And we put them there because we will operate in the light. We will operate in transparency, and we have done that. And I'm proud of the job that we do in being transparent as a board, as a community, as a school district. And I ask a lot of questions. Our agenda, and let me say this: our agenda reviews are not 10 minutes. I think the team probably sits there and say, "Oh boy, what is Mr. Cummings coming with today?" Because I'm going to ask the questions. So I don't want the community to think that this is a process that is just haphazard or a process that is taken lightly. This is a extremely well thought out process. And again, we encourage public input. We encourage public comment, but we encourage it in a right way. You can pretty much come to the microphone and say whatever you want to say to us. And we are all professionals. We're all adults. We're all elected officials on this board. And we're going to listen, but we will not be, our personal safety as long as I'm the chair, I won't ever let that be jeopardized, or the safety of anyone in this building. And some things have happened tonight that challenged our safety. Others may have felt that it was minimal, but from the field that I come from, it was not minimal. We live in a different day and age. We live in a time where you don't know what people are thinking. We live in a day and age where there's a lot of mental health issues out there, and sometimes people just can't help themselves. But my goal is to make sure that we all come here and handle the business of the district, and we all go home safely after the business is conducted. So I'm going to continue to stress safety, just as we stress safety in our schools and on our buses and in our departments. I'm going to continue to stress safety. And I thank Mr. McFadden and his team for being here tonight with that. I also heard about teacher contracts, and I too have asked the question, Mr. Rohr, about why can't we start earlier? And oftentimes I know that sometimes the unions say it's off contract hours. That's why they don't start as early. And then the budget has to be approved, which is kind of what you mentioned tonight. I'm hoping that we can get it done much faster, much sooner, because I think it leaves our folk in limbo, and I don't want our staff to ever think that we want them to be drug out or they're not important enough for us to to negotiate on those areas. Their salary is just as important, and we will do a better job. Tomorrow is to start. We have scheduled to talk about our code of conduct, our student code of conduct. You all have brought forth some very, very important aspects, and the superintendent will tell you I'm always talking about the code of conduct, Ms. Livingood, and we're always talking about discipline and things. I mentioned and it was brought up tonight about the prison to school to prison pipeline. It's real, guys. It's really, really real. I've seen the end of the pipeline. And because I'm in this position now, I'm seeing where the beginning starts. And it's unfortunate that prisons are built based on third grade fail rates. That's unfortunate. However, we as board members, educators, we have to do something to stop that situation. We have to. I don't want us to just know where it begins and ends. I want us to destroy this pipeline so that it does not lead for these kids to prison, because oftentimes it's disheartening to see men in prison or women in prison who said that I didn't get it at an early age, and I didn't get this education, the education I need to be successful. So I started being the class clown. I started acting up. I started cutting up, and I started getting in trouble. And it leads to one thing to another and to another. And before you know it, now they're in the penal system with a 6-digit in front of their name. So I'm looking forward to us addressing those issues and making sure that we destroy this school to prison pipeline. A couple of positive things, and then I'm going to end. I want to commend Dr. Stacy Reese and her team over at Howard Academy. On last Thursday, they had the district Black History program. Ms. Thor and I was there. I was a little disheartened, and I won't say on camera why I was disheartened, but if this was a celebration of Black history, it should have been more folk there than just us. And for you all that's listening, you understand what I'm talking about. We are a district, a diverse district, a very diverse district, and I would expect that in celebrations that the district put on, that it would be a diverse crowd and not just a crowd that looks one way. They did a tremendous job. Our students performed. We had students that did some wonderful performances, and it was a great time. And if you missed it, you really missed a wonderful celebration of Black history on last week, and some recognitions in Marion County. On this Saturday at Vanguard High School from 9 to 12, we've been talking about parent engagement. We've been talking about community coming together. This is the opportunity, parents. This is one of those chances where you get to come to the school and see or get some resources that will help you help your child. That's going to be from 9 to 12 at Vanguard High School. We encourage everybody. I want to encourage, listen, I want to say this, because I was at the one at Forest. I was the first one at Forest, and I was at the one at North Marion a few weeks ago with Mr. Rohr and some others. The success of these events are predicated by those feeder schools being engaged. It should be on every school in the Vanguard area. It should be on their marquee that there's going to be a parent partnership this weekend at Vanguard. And they should be encouraging their students' parents to be there. If you really want parents to be engaged, give them the information. Make sure they understand that these things are going on in their communities. It should be on Oakcrest Market. It should be on Howard's Market. It should be on Madison Streets and even N.H. Jones. It should be there. It should be there on Pheasants, because those are the schools that people will leave there and go to Vanguard, eventually get to Vanguard. So I want to encourage everyone to please, principals, I'm encouraging you to please not take light of these events, but encourage your students and their parents to participate in these parent partnerships. We're asking. We're not being mean in how we're asking you. We're saying we need your help. Your kid needs your help. We as a district need help. So please join us on this Saturday from 9 to 12 at Vanguard. And then finally, Ms. Thor mentioned this one as well. Yeah. This Saturday at 6 o'clock, my fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, is hosting a Black History banquet at it's the old Marion Hotel. And this banquet this year is going to be in honor of Dr. N.H. Jones, not the school, because I think sometimes we say Dr. N.H. Jones, everyone thinks just of the school. No, Dr. Nathaniel Hawthorne Jones, the person. He was a real live person. Matter of fact, the first spanking I got was from him because he delivered me. And he happens to be my frat brother. So this banquet this weekend is going to be in honor of Dr. Nathaniel Hawthorne Jones. And we're going to celebrate his legacy and his life. His life was very interesting. I hope all the kids that go there know who he is, know he's more than just a picture in the front office, and that he was a true live person that had some major accomplishments in Ocala and the surrounding areas, and truly he left a legacy for many to admire and to follow. So that's going to be this Saturday. If you want a ticket, they're $40, and I promise you, you'll enjoy the night. I'm not selling them. I'm through. But please, we encourage you, if you want to please attend that event. As always, I appreciate my colleagues, my board members, my fellow board members. I appreciate the superintendent and Elena and Nicole and our staff. You guys do a tremendous job, and we're keeping you here till 9 o'clock at night is not fair. But you do the job, and you'll be back first thing in the morning, and you'll do it again, and you'll do it again, not because of us, but because of the kids that we serve every day. So I want to tell you guys, thank you for staying. And with that being said, I am through with all of my comments. Okay? Before addressing expulsion matters, I wish to acknowledge that board members have received alternative placement lists for students through January 24th, 2022. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, are there any parents who have submitted a timely request to speak on their child's disciplinary matter?
No, Chair.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the expulsion of students JD 22-081E, JD 22-084, and JD 22-085 with educational services through the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year and the first semester of the 2022-2023 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Campbell.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Throer. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of students JD 22-082 and JD 22-083 with educational services through the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year and the entire 2022-2023 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. King.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Passed unanimously. And for the record, I'm going to add this. This is probably the hardest part of our agenda for me, and it always has been, expulsions. There being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Throer.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member King. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:04 p.m.